Chapter 3743. This was a kind of unyielding momentum. No matter how strong the opponent was, they couldn't retreat.
Boom.
Finally, the ancient castle collided with the two ultimate mysteries, and an earth-shattering sound immediately exploded between heaven and earth. The destructive aura turned into huge waves, annihilating in all directions.
Crack.
The ancient castle, which had already been severely damaged, shattered with the sound, and fragments flew all over the sky. Seeing this scene, whether it was Qin Feiyang, the madman, or the blood ancestor, their faces instantly turned pale. They were all scanning the void. They were looking for the ancient castle's artifact spirit. The ancient castle's body could be shattered, but the artifact spirit must be fine.
But
the ancient castle had already been shattered to this extent. How could the artifact spirit be spared? Shadowless, are you still there? Please, I beg you, answer me quickly, Qin Feiyang roared. But no matter how he shouted, he didn't hear a reply from the ancient castle. In this battlefield, he couldn't find the artifact spirit either. Could it be that the ancient castle had fallen just like that?
Ants will always be ants.
All of you, go to hell. The Queen of Flames was like a ruthless death god. With a wave of her hand, the two ultimate mysteries carried the power of destruction and continued to attack Qin Feiyang and the other two.
Clang.
At this time, the Ice Phoenix sword and the White Dragon sword rushed over like lightning and stood in front of Qin Feiyang and the other two without hesitation. Qin Feiyang, do you still remember our oath? Using our lives to protect each other's lives, we didn't break our promise. The Ice Phoenix sword and the White Dragon sword had already been severely damaged and were facing the crisis of shattering at any time.
But
at this moment, they didn't retreat. With a roar, the sharp light surged out. This was almost their last strength, and they attacked the two ultimate mysteries without looking back.
Boom.
The three sovereign divine weapons fought with their lives one after another, and the two ultimate mysteries were finally shattered. But at the same time, the Ice Phoenix sword and the White Dragon sword were also torn apart with a crack. Seeing the scene, the Queen of Flames couldn't help but raise her eyebrows. Were these sovereign divine weapons stupid? For a human, they didn't even care about their own lives.
Crack.
After losing the ancient castle, the Ice Phoenix sword and the White Dragon sword, the Heavenly Star Divine sword, the Golden Dragon Spear, the Black Dragon Mirror, the Golden Sun Divine Sword, and the Silver Moon Divine Sword, all of which were battling the Inferno Magic Sword, were destroyed one after another. Pieces of debris fell onto the devastated land. Their divine might no longer existed, and they were like scrap copper and broken iron. Looking at this scene, Qin Feiyang and the other two felt their hearts bleeding. The blood ancestor glared at the Queen of Flames and roared, "Damned woman, just you wait. I'll make you pay. You still dare to be arrogant?" The Raging Flames magic sword flew over with a murderous aura. Its sharpness swept through the heavens and the earth as it charged towards Qin Feiyang and the other two.
Boom.
Right at this moment, above Qin Feiyang, the 18 levels of hell were finally replicated.
But now,
it was impossible for him to turn the situation around by himself. He still needed 3,000 clones. This was because only by replicating all 18 levels of hell with his 3,000 incarnations could he truly reverse the situation. But at this moment, 3,000 incarnations were only able to replicate 15 levels of hell. Only 3 more levels to go. He still needed 15 breaths of time. The Sovereign's divine weapons had been shattered, and it was unknown whether they were dead or alive. Who could help them fight for these 15 breaths of time?
Die.
The Raging Flames magic sword sneered, and its sharpness surged. Qin Feiyang waved his hand and replicated the 18 levels of hell. He had no choice but to drag it out for as long as possible.
But
facing the powerful Raging Flames magic sword, even though the Raging Flames magic sword was already riddled with scars, it could not block its divine might at all. The 18 levels of hell collapsed on the spot. The Eye of Heaven is indeed powerful. It can even replicate the ultimate profound. But do you think I'll give you this chance? The Queen of Flames smiled coldly. The ultimate profound of the law of destruction and the law of space-time appeared again. Coupled with the terrifying Raging Flames magic sword, Qin Feiyong and the other two suddenly felt an aura of death shrouding their hearts. Yes, 3,000 incarnations were very powerful. The Eye of Heaven was even more heaven-defying. But they needed time. Although the time needed was wrong, only a dozen breaths at this time and place, a dozen breaths felt as long as a few centuries. They were unwilling. It's over. The Queen of Flames smiled coldly. The two ultimate profound and the Raging Flames magic sword immediately rushed towards Qin Feiyong and the other two, and her aura firmly locked onto the three of them. I really didn't expect that one day I would die with you. The Blood Ancestor landed in front of Qin Feiyong and the madman, shaking his head and smiling bitterly. It doesn't matter. 18 years later, I will be a hero again. The madman laughed. Little Qinzi, little madman, but suddenly, a surprised roar sounded. This voice, Qin Feiyong and the other two were stunned and immediately turned to look at the void behind them. They saw a golden figure rushing towards them like lightning. White-eyed wolf. The three of them quivered. They didn't expect that the white-eyed wolf would come at this time. He wore a golden robe, had long golden hair and a pair of golden eyes, as dazzling as a scorching sun, and his expression was arrogant. Who else could it be but the white-eyed wolf? It's really you guys. The Blood Ancestor is also here? Why are you all in such a sorry state? When he saw Qin Feiyong and the other two, the white-eyed wolf was ecstatic, but when he saw their sorry state, he was slightly stunned. At the same time, the Queen of Flames also glanced at the white-eyed wolf. After seeing through the white-eyed wolf's strength, a trace of disdain immediately appeared in her eyes. You actually dare to bully my little brother, you stinky woman, do you want to die? The white-eyed wolf soon noticed the two ultimate profound and the Raging Flames magic sword that were attacking the three of them, and he was instantly furious. Be careful. She's not an ordinary person. Qin Feiyong reminded. Not an ordinary person? The white-eyed wolf was slightly stunned. He activated Instant Time and instantly appeared in front of Qin Feiyong and the other two. He chuckled and said, "Don't worry, I'm not an ordinary person now either."
Clang.
As soon as he finished speaking, 3 divine weapons appeared out of thin air. They were the 3 sovereign divine weapons. The first sovereign weapon was a golden bead about the size of a baby's fist. It was surrounded by golden flames, and a golden crow was circling within the flames. This was the sovereign divine weapon of the Heavenly Hall, the Golden Crow Divine Pearl. The second sovereign divine weapon was a crimson shield that was more than a meter tall and half a meter wide. It emitted a heavy aura, and a crimson divine dragon floated above it. The third sovereign divine weapon was a chair. It was completely black and engraved with skulls, as if there were ferocious ghosts screaming, emitting a cold aura. Brother Wolf, they are... Frenzied was surprised. Crimson Dragon Shield, Ghost Divine King Throne. However, I didn't subdue them. They shamelessly insisted on following me. The white-eyed wolf grinned. Shamelessly followed you? Frenzied's face darkened. He said angrily, "Do you think I believe you? Forget it if you don't believe me." The white-eyed wolf waved his hand, looked at the 3 sovereign divine weapons, and roared, "Kill! Kill your sister! Do you know who they are? Run for your lives!" The Crimson Dragon's shield roared angrily. It swept up the white-eyed wolf, Qin Feiyong, and the 3,000 avatars and flew away without looking back. The Ghost Divine King Throne and the Golden Crow Divine Pearl that didn't know what was going on also quickly followed. What's going on? The white-eyed wolf was stunned. She is the Queen of Flames, one of the 10 demon kings. That demonic sword is her sovereign divine weapon. It's called the Inferno Demonic Sword. With their strength, they can completely crush us. The Crimson Dragon Shield and the Ghost Divine King Throne spoke one after another. Their words were filled with fear.
So strong?
The white-eyed wolf was surprised. What do you think? The Crimson Dragon's shield snorted. The white-eyed wolf's mouth twitched. He looked at the two ultimate mysteries and asked, "What are those? Are you a pig? You don't even know the ultimate mysteries of the destruction and space-time laws." The ghost divine king throne roared.
What?
"Those are the ultimate mysteries." The white-eyed wolf was shocked. This situation seemed to be a bit out of his expectations. "We can't leave. The ancient castle and the others are still on the battlefield." Frenzied came back to his senses and roared.
What?
"The ancient castle and the others are still there?" The white-eyed wolf was slightly stunned. He said in surprise, "But why can't I sense their aura?" Frenzied said in a deep voice, "I'm afraid they are already dead." The white-eyed wolf swept the ground behind him and soon saw some broken fragments. Among them were the fragments of the ancient castle. He was shocked and finally realized the seriousness of the problem. "Since we can't escape, then let's fight." The white-eyed wolf gritted his teeth and roared, "The three of you. Stop them even if you have to die." "How unlucky. How did I get into trouble with such a troublesome person like you?" The crimson dragon's shield roared angrily. His body crazily expanded and instantly turned into a huge shield, blocking in front of him. The ghost divine king throne was also furious. This was the Queen of Flames and the flame magic sword. Wasn't fighting with them courting death? But it seemed. They didn't dare to disobey the white-eyed wolf's orders and could only brace themselves.
Boom.
At this moment, the 3,000 incarnations had replicated the 16 hells. Only the last 2 levels left. Qin Feiyong looked at the ghost divine king throne and the crimson dragon shield and roared, "I don't need much time, just 10 breaths. After 10 breaths, I will make them pay a heavy price." 10 breaths. The 2 sovereign divine weapons smiled bitterly. This was really a difficult task. But at this moment, they had no other choice. The ghost divine king throne roared, "Golden crow divine pearl, come with us."
Boom.
The 2 ultimate mysteries and the flame magic sword slammed into the crimson dragon shield. Accompanied by a loud clang, the crimson dragon shield immediately cracked open. So strong. The white-eyed wolf was dumbfounded. He looked at Qin Feiyong and the other 2 in shock and anger and asked, "How did you provoke them?" "We snatched 2 of her ultimate profound law's legacies." Qin Feiyong said.
What?
"Inheritance of 2 ultimate profound meanings?" The white-eyed wolf was stunned. "Yes." Qin Feiyong nodded. "What ultimate mysteries?" The white-eyed wolf's eyes flickered. "Fire ultimate mysteries. Thunder ultimate mysteries," Qin Feiyong said. Hearing this, the white-eyed wolf said disdainfully, "Isn't it just 2 ordinary ultimate mysteries? Is there a need to fight with her like this?" When Qin Feiyong and the other 2 heard this, they were so angry that they rolled their eyes. Chapter 3744. They risked their lives to snatch 2 inheritances, but they didn't expect that in the eyes of the white-eyed wolf, they were actually so disdainful. That's right. The fire and thunder laws were indeed just ordinary laws. But one had to know. They contained the ultimate meaning. Priceless treasures. "You guys are really stupid. How can you do this kind of loss-making business? If you want to exchange for the inheritance of the ultimate meaning of the strongest law, it's more like it." The white-eyed wolf shook his head. "Loss-making my ass. Isn't it just because you have mastered the strongest laws and looked down on these ordinary laws? But have you ever thought about where your strongest laws came from?
We worked hard to snatch them for you.
Otherwise, do you think you can comprehend a few strongest laws with your own ability?" The madman's face was full of disdain. "Huh." The white-eyed wolf laughed dryly and took Qin Feiyong's trio and 3,000 incarnations to activate instant time and retreated far away. Then, he turned his head to look at the 3 sovereign divine weapons and couldn't help but have a trace of worry in his eyes. In less than 3 hours, the 3 sovereign divine weapons were already full of scars. Such terrifying strength was simply unprecedented. 10 breaths. We have to hold on even if we die, otherwise we will all be finished. The crimson dragon's shield roared. The golden crow divine bead's heart was also set off stormy waves. It never thought that the Sky Bell divine treasure still had such a terrifying powerhouse. Compared to the Dragon King, Feng Ho, the Qilin Master, the Feather Emperor, these supergiants of the Sky Cloud Realm, who knew how much stronger he was.
Boom.
Accompanied by divine power, the 3,000 incarnations finally replicated the 17th level of hell. Only 5 breaths left.
Come on.
Qin Feiyang, the madman, and the blood ancestor all roared in their hearts. White-eyed wolf, what are you still standing there for? The golden crow divine bead, can't delay for so long. Quickly try and see if you can deprive the Queen of Flame of the destruction and space-time laws.
Suddenly,
A voice sounded in the minds of Qin Feiyang's trio and the white-eyed wolf. The ancient castle. Qin Feiyang's eyes trembled. The ancient castle's artifact spirit was still there and had not fallen. Yeah. Why don't you strip her of her laws? Why are you still standing there like a fool? The white-eyed wolf slapped its head, and with a deafening roar of the Beast Emperor, a golden beast shadow roared out, and a terrifying aura immediately rushed towards the Queen of Fire. The Queen of Flames was shocked. She found that the power of the 2 great laws wanted to leave her uncontrollably. Useful? The white-eyed wolf was stunned for a moment before he was overjoyed. The Queen of Flame looked up at the golden beast shadow, her face full of disbelief. First, it was the battle souls of Qin Feiyang and the madman. Now there was a human. Moreover, the ability of the battle soul was even more terrifying. It could strip away the power of laws. What kind of monsters were these? Let's see if you can continue to be so arrogant after I strip you of your 2 great laws. The white-eyed wolf laughed loudly. Humph. The Queen of Flame snorted, and the power of the 2 most powerful laws rolled out, bombarding the golden beast shadow with earth-shattering power. With a loud bang, the golden beast shadow shattered on the spot in the void.
What?
The white-eyed wolf spat out a mouthful of blood, and his face was full of disbelief. It could actually shatter his battle soul. Was this the power of the ultimate law? Don't panic, just hold her back. The voice of the ancient castle rang out again. The fire magic sword had continuously fought with the various sovereign divine weapons. It was already seriously injured and exhausted. So now, as long as the white-eyed wolf could hold the Queen of Flame back, the Ghost Divine King and the 3 sovereign divine weapons would definitely be able to buy the remaining 5 breaths of time for Qin Feiyang. The white-eyed wolf gritted his teeth, and the golden beast shadow roared out again. Not only did it strip the Queen of Flame of her laws, but it also stripped the Queen of Sun of her cultivation. What kind of battle soul is this? The Queen of Flame was extremely angry. At the same time, Qin Feiyang stared at the Queen of Flame and the fire magic sword, and his eyes were filled with murderous intent. He looked at the 3,000 incarnations and said, "Surround them." Whoosh! Immediately, the 3,000 incarnations spread out with their respective eyes of heaven and the replicated 17 levels of hell, surrounding the Queen of Flame and the fire magic sword. After paying such a huge price, they naturally couldn't let them escape. 4 breaths. 3 breaths. 2 breaths. Seeing that the last level of hell was about to be replicated, the Queen of Flame finally noticed that she was surrounded by 3,000 incarnations, and her expression changed slightly. Consider yourself lucky. I'll let you go today. Let's go. Without hesitation, the Queen of Flame immediately shouted at the fire magic sword. No matter how confident she was, she didn't dare to fight against 3,000 ultimate mysteries. This was simply a crushing situation. You want to leave now? Impossible. The blood ancestor roared. As his voice fell, all 18 levels of hell were finally replicated. It's time to fight back.
Kill them.
Not only the blood ancestor, but Qin Feiyang and Frenzy also roared at the sky, as if venting the anger in their hearts. First of all, the blood ancestors' 18 levels of hell had been replicated by the 3,000 incarnations, so they couldn't be used. At this moment, with a wave of the blood ancestor's hand, The 18 levels of hell instantly carried monstrous, demonic power and blasted toward the Queen of Flame.
Kill. At the same time,
The 3,000 incarnations also roared in unison, and the 3,000 ultimate mysteries instantly shattered heaven and earth, majestically charging toward the Queen of Flame and the fire magic sword. For Qin Feiyang and the others, this was their last bet. If even the 3,000 ultimate mysteries couldn't kill the Queen of Flame and destroy the fire magic sword, then they were really at the end of the road. Because if they wanted to replicate the 18 levels of hell again, they would need another 90 breaths of time. How could the Queen of Flame give them so much time? So this was the most critical fight. If they succeeded, they would escape with their lives. If they failed, they would be smashed to pieces. The fate of all of them, as well as the fate of all the sovereign's divine weapons here, was on this bet. If they didn't succeed, they would die trying. Tear them to pieces. With the arrival of the 3,000 ultimate mysteries, Qin Feiyang and the others roared again. The Golden Crow Divine Pearl and the other 3 sovereigns' divine weapons also retreated to the side of Qin Feiyang and the others. Qin Feiyang, I will remember your name, and you. The Queen of Flame looked at Qin Feiyang, the madman and the white-eyed wolf with murderous intent, and roared, "The Divine King will not let you go." But before she finished speaking, the ultimate mysteries of the 3,000 incarnations and the Blood Ancestors' ultimate mysteries drowned the Queen of Flame and the fire magic sword. Screams immediately resounded through the sky. A destructive aura flooded in all directions. "We can't stop it, run!" The Red Dragon Shield and the other 3 sovereigns' divine weapons originally wanted to step forward bravely and block the battle fluctuations for Qin Feiyang and the others. Because as sovereigns' divine weapons, they were still confident in blocking the fluctuations.
but
When the fluctuations of the battle surged over, they realized that they had made a big mistake. The 3,000 ultimate mysteries were equivalent to 3,000 sovereigns' divine weapons. With such a battle fluctuation, even if they were in their peak condition, they would only be destroyed, let alone being seriously injured.
so,
They immediately took Qin Feiyang and the others and fled without looking back. And the castle, and the others. Qin Feiyang roared. The castle and the other sovereigns' divine weapons had been torn apart. If they didn't hurry to find them and escape with them, they would definitely be destroyed in the end. They didn't expect such a terrifying battle fluctuation, because it was the first time they had seen 3,000 ultimate mysteries appear at the same time. Of course, if it were any other time, they wouldn't have ignored this problem. After all, one ultimate mystery was already so powerful, let alone 3,000 ultimate mysteries. But before, the situation was so critical. They were thinking about counterattacking and getting rid of the Queen of Flame and the fire magic sword, so they ignored this point. Now, in the face of this battle fluctuation, they finally reacted, but it seemed that it was already too late. If the castle and the other sovereigns' divine weapons died under this battle fluctuation, then Qin Feiyang would regret it and blame himself for the rest of his life.
just think about it.
Previously, they didn't die in the hands of the Queen of Flame and the fire magic sword, but now they died in his hands. Who could endure this kind of torture? Therefore, at this moment, he didn't hesitate and frantically rushed down to look for the fragments of the various sovereigns' divine weapons. How could he go back on his word when he said that he would protect each other? "Don't worry about us."
Suddenly,
The voice of the Ice Phoenix sword sounded from a certain place. Qin Feiyang was stunned. "Run. We'll come for you later." The voice of the White Dragon sword also sounded, and the voice was getting further and further away, as if it was also running for its life. Hearing this, Qin Feiyang's face immediately revealed a trace of joy. The Ghost Divine King flew in front of Qin Feiyang like lightning, rolled up Qin Feiyang, and flew away, without looking back. He said angrily, "All of you, why do you all like to mess around so much?" Qin Feiyang smiled embarrassedly and raised his head to look at the Scarlet Dragon Shield, the Golden Crow Divine Pearl, and the Madman. The Scarlet Dragon Shield was also frantically escaping with the other 3. From the looks of the current situation, everyone would be able to escape safely. However, The worry in Qin Feiyang's heart couldn't be put down. Although the castle, the Ice Phoenix sword, and the White Dragon sword didn't die, what about the other sovereign's divine weapons? Were they also alive? As for the 3,000 incarnations, they naturally didn't need to escape. Even if they were shattered by the fluctuations, Qin Feiyang wouldn't be affected at all. At the same time, on the other side, Hua Dahong had already retreated to a very, very far place with Princess Horfeng and Daifuku. But even so, the moment the 3,000 ultimate mysteries erupted, they couldn't help but feel fear in their hearts. How could such a terrifying aura erupt? Because the distance was too far, they could no longer see the figures of Qin Feiyang and the others, nor did they know what had happened. However, Princess Horfeng could faintly sense the aura of the white-eyed wolf. Why was there his aura? Wasn't he already dead? Could it be an illusion?
Clang. Suddenly,
Princess Horfeng summoned the Fire Phoenix sword and anxiously said, "Quickly bring me to the battlefield." "What are you doing?" Hua Dahong was shocked and immediately grabbed onto Princess Horfeng. "Grandfather, I already regret not helping them. Don't stop me. I don't want to go against my own heart. I want to do what I want to do." Princess Horfeng said angrily. She pushed Hua Dahong away and followed the Fire Phoenix sword towards the battlefield. Chapter 37:45. As she turned around to leave, Princess Horfeng's face was filled with disappointment. All along, Hua Dahong had been a highly respected, responsible old man in her eyes. But she didn't expect that. Now, such a cowardly side would appear. A queen of flames and a flame magic sword had scared him to the point where he didn't even have the courage to fight. His great image collapsed in her heart. Hua Dahong was still angry. Daifuku finally couldn't help but look at Hua Dahong and say, "Old man, although there are some words that I'm not qualified to say, I still can't help but want to say a few words. What you're doing now is hurting the princess's heart. What do you know? This old man is doing this for her own good, for the Feng people." But before Daifuku finished speaking, Hua Dahong angrily rebuked. Daifuku's expression stiffened slightly. Looking at the angry Hua Dahong, he shook his head and said, "Fine, I said too much. You're on your own now." After saying that, he decisively chased after Princess Horfeng. "Bastard. Why don't you understand this old man's painstaking efforts?" Hua Dahong clenched his fists tightly, his face looking rather ferocious. However, when he raised his head and looked at the battlefield again, a sneer appeared on his face. The fluctuations of the battle had gradually subsided. The old devil blood ancestor and those two little bastards should have died at the hands of the flame magic sword and the Queen of Flames. And in the end, there was such a terrifying fluctuation. It should be a situation where both sides suffered heavy losses. As the saying goes, when the sandpiper and the clam fight, the fisherman benefits. Now, it was his turn to clean up this mess. On the other side, Qin Feiyang and the others also stopped at the top of a giant mountain. They turned around and looked at the shattered ground in front of them, their eyes filled with lingering fear. Fortunately, the Ghost Divine King's 3 sovereign divine weapons had helped them escape. Otherwise, even if they could kill the Queen of Flames and the flame magic sword, they would have died. "I wonder if the Queen of Flames is dead," Lunatic whispered.
Whoosh.
The blood progenitor let out a long sigh as he snarled, "Let alone her. Even the Primal Chaos Divine King and the Primal Chaos Royal City can't forget about being killed by 3,000 ultimate intents." That's true. 3,000 ultimate mysteries. The person who can block such a killer move probably hasn't been born yet. The Ghost Divine King agreed. As a Dominator divine weapon, it did not even dare to touch the fluctuations of the 3,000 ultimate mysteries, let alone the Queen of Flames and the Blaze magic sword that were drowned by the 3,000 ultimate mysteries. Being able to leave behind a wreckage was already extremely fortunate. That would be best. Madman nodded. As for Qin Feiyang, as soon as he arrived, he scanned the area and waited for the castle to arrive. He prayed silently in his heart that nothing would happen to everyone.
Whoosh.
A moment later, accompanied by the sound of the air being torn apart, a group of fragments flew over from the left side of the void. Qin Feiyong's spirit was shaken. He hurried over and asked, "Are you all right, Cauldron of all creation? Do you still need to ask? Seeing this sovereign like this, I know that something must have happened." The Cauldron of all creation said angrily. Its voice was extremely weak, and it did not even have the ability to reform its body. When it flew in front of Qin Feiyong, the Cauldron of all creation fell into a deep sleep on the spot. "Thank you," Qin Feiyong muttered and looked at the Blood Ancestor. "Ancestor, quickly set up a time array. White-Eyed Wolf, activate your life law." The Blood Ancestor and White-Eyed Wolf nodded. Whoosh! At this moment, pieces of debris flew toward him. It was the Gold Sun Divine Sword and the Silver Moon Divine Sword. As expected, they were two swindlers. Even when they were escaping, they were still together. I have to say, we are really lucky this time to be able to survive like this. The two divine swords were also extremely weak. After entering the time array, they immediately fell into a deep sleep. Whoosh!
Soon,
The illusory demon orb, White Dragon Sword, Heavenly Star Divine Sword, Red Long Sword, Edgeless Heavy Sword, Grim Reaper's Sword, Castle, and Black Dragon Mirror also flew over. Don't say anything. Quickly enter the time array to recuperate. Looking at the shattered sovereign divine weapons, Qin Feiyong's eyes became blurry. They had all fallen to this state because of helping him. What's going on? White Dragon Sword, Heavenly Star Divine Sword, Black Dragon Mirror? But the White-Eyed Wolf looked at these sovereign divine weapons in shock. Weren't they the sovereign divine weapons of the dragons and Kirans? Why were they with little Qinzi now? They have abandoned the darkness and joined the light. There's also the Golden Dragon Spear and the Ice Phoenix Sword. The madman smiled and looked at the group of sovereign divine weapons floating in the time array. He was extremely touched. If it weren't for these sovereign divine weapons fighting by their side, they would have already been killed by the blazing magic sword. Abandon the darkness and join the light? The White-Eyed Wolf was shocked.
yes.
The madman nodded. Okay. The White-Eyed Wolf roared excitedly. The Divine King said angrily, "Can you not ignore the main point?" "What main point?" The White-Eyed Wolf was stunned. With so many sovereign divine weapons working together, they still couldn't defeat the Queen of Flames and the blazing magic sword. Can you imagine how strong the 10 Demon Kings are? And can you imagine how terrifying the Divine King of Chaos is? The Divine King scolded angrily. The White-Eyed Wolf's heart sank when he heard this. Yes, with so many sovereign divine weapons working together, they still couldn't defeat a woman and a magic sword. How could they survive in the Skybell Divine Treasure in the future? Can you stop talking nonsense? The ancient castle, the Golden Dragon Spear, and the Ice Phoenix Sword haven't returned. How can you still be in the mood to talk nonsense? Qin Feiyong said angrily. The White-Eyed Wolf, the Madman, and the Divine King fell silent. Whoosh! About a moment later, as Qin Feiyong waited nervously, the fragments of the ancient castle's 3 sovereign divine weapons finally appeared. Qin Feiyong hurriedly went forward to welcome them. The Ice Phoenix Sword and the ancient castle had spoken before, so there was no need to consider it for the time being. However, the Golden Dragon Spear had never said a word. And, at this moment, he couldn't sense any life aura from the fragments of the Golden Dragon Spear. Golden Dragon Spear, Qin Feiyong's gaze trembled. Could it be? Sigh. The Ice Phoenix Sword sighed weakly and said, "We've tried our best." Qin Feiyong's body immediately shook violently, and tears flowed down from his eyes. The Madman, the White-Eyed Wolf, and the Blood Ancestor also immediately stepped forward. Looking at the fragments of the Golden Dragon Spear, tears also flowed down their faces. Haha, I'm just teasing you. The Ice Phoenix Sword suddenly laughed. The ancient castle also laughed.
What?
Qin Feiyong and the other 3 were surprised. The Ice Phoenix Sword chuckled and said, "The Golden Dragon Spear just wanted to give it a try. Would you guys be sad for it?"
Ah.
Qin Feiyong and the other 3 were stunned. Not bad. Just for these few drops of tears, it's worth it. The golden dragon spear's voice sounded, and its life aura also emerged, but like the ancient castle and the ice phoenix sword, it was also extremely weak. Are you interested? Running over to scare us at this time? The madman came back to his senses and immediately slapped a fragment of the golden dragon spear. Don't you know? It's already broken like this. The golden dragon spear was dissatisfied. Who told you to deceive our feelings? The madman snorted coldly.
Cough, cough.
It's just a little joke. The golden dragon spear smiled embarrassedly. Qin Feiyong wiped away his tears, looked at the 3 sovereign divine weapons, and said with a smile, "Go and heal your injuries. The time array is already prepared for us? At least you guys have some conscience." The 3 sovereign divine weapons were stunned and immediately rushed into the time array and then gradually fell into a deep sleep. Qin Feiyong turned his head to look at the group of sovereign divine weapons on the mountain peak and seemed to be in disbelief. He whispered, "Are they all still alive?"
Yes.
The madman and the blood ancestor nodded. "It's good that they're alive," Qin Feiyong murmured. His nervous and uneasy heart finally calmed down. His body also collapsed as he sat in the void, panting heavily.
It could be said that
this was the most tragic battle he had ever experienced in his life. All of the sovereign divine weapons were severely injured. The madman also lost his physical body. The blood ancestor was also covered in wounds. Even the golden crow divine pearl and the other 2 sovereigns' divine weapons were severely injured. Fortunately, they had survived. Qin Feiyong and the other 3 returned to the mountain peak and entered the time array to heal their injuries. The white-eyed wolf looked up at the battlefield and the 3 sovereign divine weapons. He said, "The 3 of you go to the battlefield and confirm whether they're dead or not. It's better for me to go alone. You're all seriously injured and can't fight. Let the golden crow divine weapon and the crimson dragon shield stay here to protect you in case of any accidents." The divine king said. "Thank you." Qin Feiyong smiled gratefully. "No need to thank me. To be able to make so many sovereign divine weapons sacrifice their lives to help you, it shows that you're quite lucky." After saying that, the divine king rushed toward the battlefield. "The battle hasn't subsided yet. Be careful," the white-eyed wolf reminded him. "It's none of your business." The divine king snorted coldly, without looking back, and disappeared from the sight of the 4. "This sovereign divine weapon has quite a personality." The madman laughed. "No matter how much personality it has, it still has to listen to Big Brother obediently, right?" The white-eyed wolf bared his teeth and looked at the 3 of them curiously. He asked, "What's the background of this Queen of Flames and the magic sword?" "Their background is quite big." The blood ancestor shook his head and explained the situation briefly. "What? They're actually that powerful?" The white-eyed wolf was shocked. "And a lot of things have happened over the years." Qin Feiyong briefly explained the situation of Li Feng and the 3 sovereign divine weapons, the Black Flame Demon King, the Black Flame Demon Castle, the Blood Ancestor, the Feather Emperor, and the Divine King of Primal Chaos.
Damn.
This is too crazy. Absorbing the souls of the dead can increase the power of laws. The white-eyed wolf was shocked. "So now you understand. Whether or not we snatch the 2 inheritances this time, the Queen of Flames will attack us sooner or later," the Blood Ancestor said. The Blood Ancestor said, "Since they're enemies, even if it's just 2 ordinary inheritances, we can't let them get away with it." The white-eyed wolf nodded. "Even if? Can you be more disdainful?" The faces of Qin Feiyong and the other 2 darkened. "Did the ordinary laws offend you or provoke you? Why are you so disdainful?"
Hey.
The white-eyed wolf bared his teeth. The blood ancestor waved his hand and shook his head. "Let's not talk about it. Anyway, we've already avoided this calamity. As for the Divine King of Primal Chaos and the other 9 Demon Kings, let's talk about it when we meet them in the future." Qin Feiyong and the madman nodded.
It was meaningless to talk about it now.
Instead, it was just asking for trouble. Chapter 3746. But there's something I have to tell you. Qin Feiyang turned to look at the white-eyed wolf. What is it? The white-eyed wolf was puzzled. Princess Hufeng is also here, Qin Feiyang said. The white-eyed wolf was slightly taken aback. He quickly looked around and asked, why don't I see her? Are you looking forward to it? Qin Feiyang and Madman looked at each other and revealed a meaningful smile. What am I looking forward to? The white-eyed wolf pursed his lips. You don't mean what you say. As soon as you heard that this woman was here, you couldn't wait to look around. Madman looked at him with disdain. Are you done yet? The white-eyed wolf glared at Madman and raised his eyebrows. I just don't understand. Since she's here, why didn't she come to help? Don't mention this. When Madman heard this, his entire body was filled with anger. What's wrong? The white-eyed wolf was puzzled. I don't want to talk about it. I'm going to reconstruct my body first. You guys can talk. After saying that, Madman sat down and closed his eyes to meditate. The white-eyed wolf looked at Madman in shock, then looked at Qin Feiyang and asked, what's the situation? Qin Feiyang sighed. It's no wonder that senior brother is so angry. They really went too far this time. How did they go too far? The white-eyed wolf frowned. Qin Feiyang was silent for a while. Then, he told her everything that had happened after he met the Fire Phoenix First Princess, helped her subdue the Ice Phoenix, sword, and other sovereign divine weapons, and gave her the miniature of the Law of Devour and the Law of Fire.
What?
The white-eyed wolf was stunned. He didn't expect so many things to happen in just a dozen years. Qin Feiyang said, we agreed to cooperate, but in the end, they only cared about running for their lives when there was danger. So, if they were willing to help this time, we wouldn't have fallen to this point.
Bitch.
You've benefited so much, yet you're still standing by and doing nothing. White-eyed wolf clenched his fists. Qin Feiyang sighed. Actually, you can't blame her. Huidahong must be behind this. Huidahong, the white-eyed wolf muttered. Qin Feiyang's eyes flickered as he said in a deep voice, Senior brother suspected that Huidahong might have ulterior motives, so we have to figure it out. The white-eyed wolf was surprised. Do you mean that he pretended to be afraid of the Queen of Fire, but in fact, he wanted to kill you with a borrowed knife?
Yes.
Qin Feiyang nodded. Bastard.
You're courting death.
The white-eyed wolf's eyes were filled with killing intent. Qin Feiyang smiled and said, there's one more thing. We told Princess Hufeng that you've already died outside. If she appears later, you should change your aura slightly. Died outside. The white-eyed wolf was stunned. He stared angrily at Qin Feiyang and Madman, saying angrily, you can find a lot of excuses at any time, but you just have to find this excuse to curse me, right? Don't make a fuss. It has nothing to do with me. Madman snorted coldly. When the white-eyed wolf heard this, he only stared at Qin Feiyang. Qin Feiyang smiled and said, isn't this to improve the effect? The white-eyed wolf rolled his eyes and asked curiously, how is the effect? Pretty good. At that time, she was dumbfounded and sad for a long time. Qin Feiyang chuckled. You still know how to be sad. The white-eyed wolf was stunned and snorted coldly. At least she still has some conscience. Qin Feiyang added, also, you're now called Bai Xiaotian. Bai Xiaotian. The white-eyed wolf muttered and nodded. This name is not bad. Battlefield. Although the Ghost Divine King had successfully entered the battlefield, he was unable to get close to the center of the battlefield. This was because the destructive fluctuations in the center of the battlefield were too terrifying. He tried to force his way in, but in less than a breath of time, his body was severely injured. He had no choice but to retreat.
On the other side,
Princess Hufeng and the other two were also facing the same situation. They also wanted to enter the center of the battlefield to investigate. Especially Huidahong. Looking at the center of the battlefield, he couldn't wait to find the corpses of Qin Feiyang and the others. However, even the sovereign divine weapon couldn't withstand the fluctuations of the 3,000 ultimate mysteries, let alone him. What happened here before? It actually left behind such terrifying battle fluctuations.
Suddenly,
his eyes flashed as he looked at Princess Hufeng and snorted coldly. Aren't you worried about them? Why don't you take out all your sovereign divine weapons and see if you can force your way in? Hearing this, Princess Horfeng looked at Huadahong in surprise. Huadahong said, "Grandfather is not really heartless. It's just that he was intimidated by the Queen of Flames before. Since we are in a cooperative relationship, naturally I should care about them." Hearing this, Princess Horfeng was quite happy in her heart. The Void Mirror and the other sovereign divine weapons appeared and joined forces to bring Princess Horfeng and the other two into the center of the battlefield, but in the end, they still couldn't hold on. How is this possible? The three of them were dumbfounded. One had to know. Right now, they had the Void Mirror, the Fire Phoenix Sword, the Fire Phoenix Divine Jade, the Fire Phoenix Blade, the Fire Phoenix Spear, the Fire Phoenix Divine Axe, and the Profound Ice Divine Hammer. A total of 10 sovereign divine weapons. With so many sovereign divine weapons joining forces, they were still unable to withstand this fluctuation. Not only Princess Horfeng and the other two, but even the Void Mirror and the other sovereign divine weapons were extremely shocked. This was simply beyond the scope of their understanding. There's the aura of a sovereign divine weapon? There's more than one. The Ghost Divine King sensed the aura of the Fire Phoenix Sword and the other sovereign divine weapons and immediately restrained his aura. He bypassed the center of the battlefield and rushed towards the location of Princess Horfeng and the others.
Soon,
He saw the Princess Horfeng and the other two and the 10 sovereign divine weapons.
who is it?
The Ghost Divine King still didn't know the identity of the Princess Horfeng and the other two. He couldn't help but feel a little suspicious. Could it be that they were friends of Qin Feiyong and the others?
No.
If they were really friends of Qin Feiyong and the others, why didn't they make a move before?
Who is it? Suddenly,
The Fire Phoenix Sword roared, and his divine sense surged out and rushed towards the Ghost Divine King. Someone's there? Huadahong and the other two were also shocked and immediately looked up. Seeing that his whereabouts were exposed, the Ghost Divine King immediately turned around and fled. Sovereign Divine Weapon. Chase after him. Huadahong roared in surprise. At that moment, the Fire Phoenix Sword and the other sovereign divine weapons led the three of them and began to chase after the Ghost Divine King. 10 sovereign divine weapons. What if they are opponents of Qin Feiyong and the others? If we lure them over, wouldn't it be dangerous? The Ghost Divine King was burning with anxiety. No, I have to inform them quickly. Immediately, he contacted the Red Dragon Shield through the contract. At the top of the mountain, the Red Dragon Shield, who received the news, also changed his expression and shouted, "Old bastard is in big trouble." What big trouble? Qin Feiyong and the White-Eyed Wolf were shocked. The Madman and the Blood Ancestor also immediately opened their eyes. The Red Dragon Shield said in a deep voice, "He just contacted me. There are 3 humans and 10 sovereign divine weapons chasing after him." Heard it? Qin Feiyong, the Madman, and the Blood Ancestor looked at each other. It must be Huadahong and the others. The Madman's eyes darkened as he looked at Qin Feiyong and said, "Old Qin, we can't let Huadahong find us now." That's right. The Blood Ancestor also nodded with a gloomy face. If Huadahong really had ulterior motives, he would definitely take the opportunity to attack them after seeing them like this.
And now,
The sovereign divine weapons were all seriously injured and unconscious. Only the Ghost Divine King, the Golden Crow Pearl, and the Red Dragon Shield were left. How could they block the sovereign divine weapons like the Fire Phoenix Sword? What about the Ghost Divine King? It was already seriously injured when fighting with the Flame Magic Sword. Its speed can't be compared to the Fire Phoenix Sword. It can't hold on for long. It might even be dangerous in the end. Qin Feiyong frowned. He never thought that they would face such a crisis at this moment. The White-Eyed Wolf's eyes flashed as he suddenly looked at the Red Dragon Shield and said, "Tell the Divine King to bring them here." What? The Blood Ancestor and the Madman were shocked. I want to see if this woman is worth it for us to help her like this. But just to be safe, Golden Crow Pearl, take everyone away and find a place to hide. I'll stay here and wait for them. The White-Eyed Wolf said.
Okay.
The Golden Crow Pearl nodded. It's too dangerous for you to stay here alone. The madman frowned. Don't talk nonsense, hurry up. The white-eyed wolf scolded. I'll stay too. Qin Feiyang said. You're also fooling around? The madman glared at Qin Feiyang. I also want to see if the first princess will disappoint me, but we can't really take the risk. Qin Feiyang's mind moved, and an avatar appeared. This avatar could completely pretend to be him. You have an avatar, but Brother Wolf doesn't. The madman frowned. Qin Feiyang pondered for a while and smiled. Simple, split a divine soul. Even if Huidahong attacks us, we won't really die. Yeah. We can also split a divine soul. In that case, I'll stay too. The madman patted his head. All of you? Then I'll stay and join in the fun. The blood ancestor chuckled. In fact, they all wanted to see with their own eyes whether Huidahong was hiding his killing intent or not. If so, what choice would Princess Huifeng make at that time?
So,
The white-eyed wolf, the madman, and the blood ancestor split a divine soul and gave it to Qin Feiyang, along with their interspatial rings and other important things.
then,
Qin Feiyang followed the golden crow pearl, hid his aura, took the ruler's divine weapons, and quietly escaped into the distant mountain. The one who left was naturally Qin Feiyang's original body. The Black Tortoise realm was in his body, so he definitely couldn't stay here and risk his life.
so now,
The one who stayed on the mountain peak was his avatar. Also, the madman, the blood ancestor, and the white-eyed wolf's divine souls were in Qin Feiyang's hands, so they could truly be at ease. A moment later,
whoosh.
accompanied by the sound of the air being torn apart, the ghost god throne flew over like a bolt of lightning. Seeing that only the crimson dragon shield, Fengzi, and Qin Feiyang's clone were left on the mountain peak, Fengzi couldn't help but feel puzzled. Where were the other rulers' divine weapons? Of course, the divine king didn't know that the Qin Feiyang in front of him was only an avatar.
Boom.
In less than 3 seconds, the Fire Phoenix sword, the 10 rulers' divine weapons, and Huidahong also chased after him. The white-eyed wolf had already changed his aura. Even if Princess Huifeng stood next to him, she wouldn't be able to recognize him. Chapter 37:47. When she saw Qin Feiyang and the other 3 on the mountain peak, Princess Huifeng's face immediately revealed a trace of joy. Isn't this that guy? He still has the face to appear in front of us. The blood ancestor's eyes flashed. Hearing this, Princess Huifeng felt extremely guilty. She lowered her head, walked up to the 4, and apologized. I'm sorry. You think this is over with just an apology? We agreed to cooperate, but what happened in the end? If Bai Shout-Eon hadn't come in time, we would have all died at the hands of the Queen of Flames and the magic sword. The madman said angrily. Princess Huifeng hesitated. She glanced at Huidahong and sighed. This is indeed my fault. If you want to blame me, I have nothing to say. Huidahong's eyes flashed. He looked apologetically at the madman, Princess Huifeng, and Qin Feiyang's avatar. You can't blame Wu Er. If you want to blame someone, blame this old man. This old man was too timid and only cared about running for his life. I didn't consider your situation at all. The 4 looked at each other. This attitude was not bad. Were they thinking too much? Was Huidahong really just scared? Daifuka looked at Qin Feiyang's group of 4, then at Princess Huifeng and Princess Huifeng. He smiled and said, since we've already talked about it, let's just let it go. As long as you don't have any selfish motives in the future. The blood ancestor was silent for a while before nodding.
Okay.
After all, she's the Queen of Flames, one of the 10 great demon kings. It's understandable that you were scared by her name.
Thank you.
Princess Huifeng's face was full of gratitude. Then, she looked around with a hint of confusion in her eyes. What are you looking at? The madman was suspicious. Princess Huifeng hesitated for a moment before sending a voice transmission. I seem to have sensed his aura before. Him? The madman, blood ancestor, and Qin Feiyang's avatars looked at each other. Princess Huifeng was obviously talking about the white-eyed wolf. You must be mistaken. The one who came to rescue us was Bai Xiaotian. Madman transmitted. Princess Huifeng raised her head and looked at the white-eyed wolf with a trace of suspicion in her eyes. The ingrate, on the other hand, was expressionless. Hua Dahong's eyes lit up as he looked at the ghost divine king and the scarlet dragon shield. He asked suspiciously, "Brother Qin, what are these two sovereign realm divine weapons?" "It's my sovereign weapon," the white-eyed wolf said. Hua Dahong glanced at the white-eyed wolf and nodded in realization. Then, he asked suspiciously, "What about the castle and the others? Why don't I see them? Also, how did you kill the Queen of Flames and the magic Sword of Flames?" "In order to protect us, the castle and the Queen of Flames have perished together with the magic Sword of Flames." Qin Feiyang's incarnation sighed. "Let's die together." The eyes of Hua Dahong and the other two trembled. Immediately after, Princess Huifeng and Daifuku couldn't help but feel a sense of sadness in their hearts. Hua Dahong's eyes were filled with regret. It was too much of a pity that so many sovereign realm divine weapons had all fallen at once. Hua Dahong asked calmly, "Then did you obtain any treasures below the grotto?" "What do you mean? You still want to split these two inheritances with us?" Madman glared at Hua Dahong. "Two inheritances? What do you mean?" Hua Dahong was surprised. Daifuku and Princess Huifeng were also puzzled. Blood Ancestor said, "We found two ultimate inheritances below the grotto, but they have nothing to do with you because we exchanged our lives for them." Ultimate inheritances. Hua Dahong's body shook as he laughed dryly. Yes, we definitely won't snatch them from you, but can you tell us what kind of laws they are?" Madman said, "Space-time law and time law." It was actually the law of fire and the law of thunder. The reason why he said this was to test Hua Dahong. Space-time law, time law. It's actually the inheritances of two ultimate laws. Hua Dahong couldn't help but become excited, and a trace of killing intent appeared in his heart. The moment this killing intent appeared, Qin Feiyang's avatar's eyes flashed. He transmitted to Madman and the others, "There's killing intent. Killing intent." The hearts of the three trembled. It seemed that Hua Dahong really was pretending, but the four of them pretended not to know.
"Fine.
Let's recover first. If you really feel sorry for us, then guard us properly." Madman looked at Princess Huifeng and then sat inside the time formation, closed his eyes, and meditated. Qin Feiyang, Blood Ancestor, and White-Eyed Wolf also entered the time formation. The Ghost Divine King Throne and the Crimson Dragon Shield, the two sovereign realm divine weapons, disappeared into White-Eyed Wolf's body under the White-Eyed Wolf's instructions. The four of them sat inside the time formation without any vigilance. Looking at Madman, Blood Ancestor, and Qin Feiyang's avatar, Princess Huifeng couldn't help but sigh. Although the three of them didn't say anything, she could feel that the three of them were very dissatisfied with her. But at this time, she couldn't say anything. Looking at the Fire Phoenix sword and the other sovereign realm divine weapons, she warned, "Be careful and pay attention to the surroundings." "Understood." The group of sovereign realm divine weapons replied.
Then,
Princess Huifeng walked to the edge of the cliff and looked at the mountains below with a disappointed expression. So, it was really an illusion.
sigh.
Daifuku looked at Princess Huifeng's back and couldn't help but sigh in his heart. However, Hua Dahong looked at Qin Feiyang's group of four. Although he didn't show anything on the surface, the killing intent in his heart was getting stronger and stronger. "Be careful. He will definitely attack us." Qin Feiyang's avatar transmitted.
"Got it."
White-Eyed Wolf secretly replied. The Ghost Divine King Throne and Crimson Dragon Shield lurking in his body had always been on guard against Hua Dahong. At this time, the mountain peak was extremely calm.
Clang.
But suddenly, Hua Dahong's eyes were filled with killing intent. He rushed to the front of the Fire Phoenix Divine Axe, grabbed the axe, and charged toward Qin Feiyang's group of four. Daifuku was stunned. Princess Huifeng heard the movement and couldn't help but turn around suspiciously. But seeing the scene, the two of them changed color. "Old man, what are you doing?" Fire Phoenix, Divine Axe, stop. The two of them shouted in unison. But Huadahong turned a deaf ear to them. The Fire Phoenix Divine Axe was extremely sharp. The Fire Phoenix Divine Axe was a sovereign realm divine weapon. Whether it was in the Sky Cloud realm or the Sky Bell divine treasure, it had always been with Huadahong.
So,
If it had to choose between Huadahong and Princess Hufeng, it would definitely choose Huadahong.
die.
Huadahong laughed sinisterly. In his opinion, Qin Feiyang's group of 4, who were unsuspecting, would definitely not be able to counterattack in the face of such a sudden attack. They would definitely die. However, just as he held the Fire Phoenix Divine Axe and charged into the Time Array, the Crimson Dragon Shield and the Ghost Deity throne suddenly appeared and blocked in front of Madman and the others.
Clang. Boom.
Accompanied by a loud sound, a monstrous aura suddenly erupted. Not only the Time Array, but the entire mountain peak, including the surrounding mountains, instantly shattered.
What?
Huadahong looked at this scene in shock. Are you surprised? I knew you didn't have good intentions. Blood Ancestor sneered. I knew, Huadahong murmured. How could he be seen through? He didn't reveal any flaws at all. Grandfather, why? Princess Hufeng came back to her senses and ran in front of the 4, glaring at Huadahong. Shut up! Huadahong roared and stared angrily at the 4, laughing sinisterly. Since you saw through it, why didn't you escape? Don't tell me you think you're qualified to fight this old man with your current strength. Qualified? Trash like you dares to talk about qualifications with us. White-Eyed Wolf laughed angrily. Haha, instead of getting angry, Huadahong laughed loudly. What are you laughing at? White-Eyed Wolf frowned. I'm laughing at your stupidity. Do you really think you're smart? I'm not afraid to tell you the truth. This old man wasn't scared by the Flame Queen and the Flame Magic Sword at all. This old man deliberately didn't make a move. Do you know why? Because this old man wants to kill with a borrowed knife. I want to get rid of you. Huadahong sneered. What? Princess Hufeng's body trembled as she looked at Huadahong in disbelief. Old man, it's not that I want to say this, but this time, you've really gone too far. During our cooperation, Qin Feiyang and the others have treated us well. It's obvious how well they treated us. The Void Mirror, the Law Miniature, they didn't leave us out of anything. But what about you? You actually repay them like this. Aren't you afraid of being ridiculed in the future? Daifuku sighed. Huadahong was so angry that he gnashed his teeth and roared. Who do you think you are? How dare you lecture this old man? I'm being reasonable. Put yourself in my shoes. Daifuku shook his head. Reasonable? Fine. This old man will be reasonable with you today. Qin Feiyang, Shuezu, Madman Mo, who are they? There are future enemies. Since there are enemies, we naturally have to find a way to get rid of them. Everything this old man has done is for the Feng people. What's wrong with that? Huadahong was so angry that he laughed. Although you're right, you can't go behind their backs and plot against them when we're cooperating. Even if you want to fight, shouldn't you fight openly? What's the difference between what you're doing and what you're doing? Princess Hufeng said angrily, her face full of disappointment. You're really stubborn. Huadahong was also infuriated. He looked at Feng Zi and the others and said, I really don't know what kind of bewitching potion you gave her to make her protect you like this. However, I am her family. So? White-Eyed Wolf asked. So you'll definitely die today. Originally, this old man planned to wait until you and the Queen of Flames were both injured before coming out to deal with you all. This way, the ruler's divine weapons in the ancient castle would fall into the hands of the Feng people one by one. But I didn't expect that they would die together with the Queen of Flames and the Fire Magic Sword. We lost so many rulers' divine weapons for nothing. But it doesn't matter. Don't you still have the Black Tortoise World and the inheritances of the laws of space and time? It's not too bad. Huadahong chuckled and looked at Princess Hufeng again. He smiled and said, Wu-er, as long as you kill them now, the Black Tortoise World will be yours in the future. You'll be the ruler of this world, the god of creation. How good is that? Hurry up and let the fire phoenix sword and the others kill them. Chapter 37:48. When first Princess Huifeng heard this, her face paled slightly. She looked at the madman's trio and Qin Feiyang's incarnation with a panicked expression. At the same time, Madman and the other three also looked at Princess Fire Phoenix. They had acted for so long just for this moment. How would this woman choose? Don't think too much. Being kind to the enemy is being cruel to yourself. Because in the future, when you fall into their hands, they will definitely kill you without mercy. Let's talk about it later. Haven't you always wanted to take back the god-slaying tablet? As long as you kill them and obtain the Black Tortoise Realm, won't the god-slaying tablet return to your side? Hua Dahong continued to tempt her. Because with just the Fire Phoenix Divine Axe, it was impossible to kill the four who were protected by the Ghost Divine King and the Crimson Dragon Shield. Otherwise, he would have done it himself. Stop, I don't want to hear it. Princess Huifeng shook her head. You still don't want to hear it? Grandfather, who are you doing this for? Isn't it all for you? Don't tell me you want to be an unfilial person. Let me tell you. Today, you have to kill them even if you don't want to. Otherwise, this old man will cut off all ties with you. Not only that, when we return to the Foam people, this old man will make your father cut off all ties with you and leave you alone. Now, whether you choose them or us, the family that raised you and took care of you for most of your life, it's up to you. Hua Dahong shouted angrily. His patience had run out. Don't say any more. I beg you, don't force me like this, okay? Princess Huifeng hugged her head like a helpless child. She was on the verge of collapse. Daifuku's heart ached as he watched from the side. Sigh. It's been hard on her. The blood ancestor sighed. Indeed. It's indeed a bit cruel for her to make such a choice. The crazy one nodded. White-eyed wolf, what do you think? Qin Feiyang's clone glanced at the white-eyed wolf and asked. The white-eyed wolf remained silent, but it could be seen that he was clenching his fists tightly, and there was a trace of heartache for Princess Huifeng between his brows. Quickly decide. Should I choose them or my families? Hua Dahong closed in step by step. I don't know. Princess Huifeng hugged her head and squatted in the air. She shook her head madly and cried bitterly. When the white-eyed wolf saw this scene, he finally couldn't help but step forward and embrace Princess Huifeng. He comforted her. Don't be afraid. No matter what happens, I will always be by your side. Daifuku and Hua Dahong were stunned. Madman and the other two also looked at the white-eyed wolf in astonishment. He finally couldn't help but express his feelings. Meanwhile, Princess Huifeng also looked up at the white-eyed wolf in astonishment. It's me. The white-eyed wolf smiled faintly, and the changed aura returned to normal. Sensing this familiar aura, Princess Huifeng's eyes trembled. Little Qinzi and the others lied to you. I didn't die at all. I apologize to you on their behalf.
I'm sorry.
Looking at her tear-stained face, the white-eyed wolf's heart ached.
Fuck.
He actually put on such a wonderful confession. Madman's mouth twitched. Qin Feiyang's clone and the blood ancestor shook their heads and smiled bitterly. They never expected this to happen. He lied to me. Princess Huifeng was dumbfounded. She looked at the unfamiliar face in front of her as if she couldn't believe it. It's really me. The white-eyed wolf smiled, and the hidden mark between his eyebrows appeared. This mark couldn't be faked. Moreover, the aura emitted by this mark was exactly the same as before. Princess Huifeng didn't have any more doubts. A dead person suddenly appeared in front of her. It was easy to imagine how big of an impact this kind of mixed emotions would have on a person. Princess Huifeng's emotions collapsed. However, it wasn't a collapse of despair. She could no longer control the feelings in her heart. The feelings that had been hidden in the depths of her heart poured out like a flood breaking through a dam. She hugged the white-eyed wolf, tears streaming down her face. I'm sorry. Feeling the clothes on his chest gradually soaked with tears, the white-eyed wolf blamed himself even more. Why did he keep suppressing his feelings and not take the initiative to confess to this woman earlier?
I swear.
From now on, I will never let my woman suffer like this again. It's just as we expected. Madman chuckled. The blood ancestor and Qin Feiyong couldn't help but look at each other and smile. They used the white-eyed wolf's death to deliberately provoke Princess Hufeng. When the white-eyed wolf suddenly appeared in front of her one day, the feelings in her heart would inevitably be uncontrollable. Then, they would naturally walk together. This was also good. They had fulfilled one of their wishes.
Who the hell are you?
What's the relationship between you two?
Suddenly,
An angry roar sounded, breaking the atmosphere. Madman and the others immediately looked up at Huidahong and raised their eyebrows. They saw Huidahong looking at the white-eyed wolf and Princess Hufeng hugging each other. He was completely flustered and exasperated. Seeing Huidahong so angry, Princess Hufeng couldn't help but instinctively feel flustered. She hurriedly let go of the white-eyed wolf. However, the white-eyed wolf grabbed her hand. Princess Hufeng turned to look at the white-eyed wolf. I won't let go for the rest of my life. It's too late for you to regret it now. The white-eyed wolf bared his teeth. Princess Hufeng's cheeks slightly blushed. She hurriedly lowered her head, not daring to look into the white-eyed wolf's eyes. However, her heart was filled with joy. Was this a formal confession? This is not good. Daifuku, who was next to them, looked at the white-eyed wolf and Princess Hufeng, and then looked at the furious Huidahong. He couldn't help but worry. Not to mention Huidahong's current killing intent, the Feng people and the human race's standpoint would absolutely not allow this. Answer this old man. Huidahong roared. The white-eyed wolf firmly grasped Princess Hufeng's hand. He looked straight at Huidahong and snorted coldly. Who is this, brother? I'm afraid I'll scare you if I tell you. Be more polite. After all, he's my grandfather. Princess Hufeng secretly said. What kind of grandfather would force his own granddaughter like this? I think they picked you up and brought you back. The white-eyed wolf sneered. What nonsense are you talking about? Princess Hufeng secretly glared at him. I've always been like this. You respect me. So of course I respect you. However, if you dare to be arrogant in front of me, then I'll be even more arrogant than you. Not to mention a rotten old man. Even if you're the heavenly king, it's useless. The white-eyed wolf smiled proudly.
bastard.
Huidahong was so angry that he almost vomited blood. Not only did this person pick up his granddaughter, but he actually dared to call him a rotten old man. He turned to look at Daifuku and roared, Who exactly is he? Daifuku sized up the white-eyed wolf and sighed. If I'm not mistaken, he should be the golden-winged wolf king. Golden-winged wolf king? Huidahong's pupils suddenly shrank. Wasn't this the wolf cub who grasped the 6 strongest laws and could deprive others of their laws? It was actually him. Sure enough, he was shocked.
Wait.
Huidahong came back to his senses and hurriedly pointed at the two of them, asking, When did they get together? Why didn't you tell us earlier? I don't know either. Daifuku shook his head. Although he had always been by Princess Hufeng's side, he truly did not know when Princess Hufeng had developed feelings for the golden-winged wolf king. Bastard. You actually helped her deceive us. Do you know what the consequences will be if Lady Feng Ho finds out about this? Huidahong was unable to restrain his anger. I didn't. Daifuku frowned. Why didn't they believe him? As for Feng Ho's anger, who would be worried? But what was the use of worrying? The princess had clearly fallen in love. Let's not talk about it so far. We'll talk about Feng Ho later. For now, let's talk about our grudges. The blood ancestor laughed sinisterly, his eyes emitting a terrifying bloody light. Haha, Huidahong laughed and looked at them contemptuously. Now you only have 2 Dominator divine weapons. Do you still want to overturn the situation? Then, he looked at Princess Hufeng and said coldly, no matter what you say, I won't agree to this relationship. Not only me, but your father, your brother, and even the entire Feng people won't agree to this. Today, I want you to end this completely. I want you to kill the golden-winged wolf king with your own hands. What? Princess Hufeng's face turned pale. She thought that after this relationship was made public, her grandfather would not make things difficult for them. She did not expect him to force her like this. He even wanted her to kill the person she liked with her own hands? Old man, don't go too far. The white-eyed wolf was also furious. He had never seen such a cruel old man. But Huadahong turned a deaf ear to him. He stared at Princess Hufeng and asked aggressively, "Are you going to kill him or not?" "Bastard, I can't take it anymore. We Dominator Divine weapons are already very cold, but I didn't expect you to be even colder than us. You're forcing your own granddaughter to this extent." The Void Mirror roared and blasted towards Huadahong with surging divine power. Who would have thought that the Void Mirror would attack at this time? Along with a loud clang, the Fire Phoenix divine axe in Huadahong's hand was sent flying on the spot. Huadahong also screamed in pain and smashed into the ground below like a meteorite. "Void Mirror, what are you doing? Don't forget who your master is now." The Fire Phoenix divine axe came back to its senses and roared. "What does it have to do with you? You don't agree?" The Void Mirror was very strong. The Fire Phoenix divine axe was furious and roared, "Fire Phoenix sword, Black Ice divine hammer, suppress it with me." However, the Fire Phoenix sword and the other Dominator divine weapons did not move. The Black Ice divine hammer was one of the 4 Dominator divine weapons. Needless to say, they only listened to Princess Hufeng. Even Feng Ho's orders were useless. As for the Fire Phoenix sword, Fire Phoenix divine jade, Fire Phoenix saber, and Divine Phoenix spear, they seemed to not like Huadahong's actions. Even if their positions were different, they couldn't force their own granddaughter like this. If there was a problem, just show it. Couldn't everyone solve it calmly? Did they have to use such extreme methods? Chapter 3749. Haha. The Blood Ancestor came back to his senses and looked down at Huadahong, who was struggling to get up. He laughed gloatingly. "Did you see that? Even the Sovereign Divine weapon doesn't like you. How much of a failure are you?" Huadahong stood on the ground and looked up at the Void Mirror. His eyes were filled with hatred. "What are you looking at? If you're not convinced, then let's fight one-on-one." The Void Mirror sneered. Huadahong turned his hands and looked at Princess Hufeng. He said angrily, "You're going to let it bully your grandfather like this? If you weren't so unreasonable, would the Void Mirror make a move on you?" Princess Hufeng sighed. "I'm unreasonable? It seems that you're determined to betray us." Huadahong was furious. "I'm not." Princess Hufeng's face was also filled with anger, but she seemed to be worried about Huadahong's identity. Her tone softened as she sighed. "Grandfather, I'm just fighting for my own happiness." "Happiness? Huh. Do you think you'll be happy with him? Don't be naive. Your relationship won't end well. The deeper you fall now, the more harm it will cause to you in the future." Huadahong's face was full of ridicule. "It's fine as long as you try." Princess Hufeng whispered. Silly. Don't be so willful, okay? It's a very simple reason. If one day the foam people fall out with them, what will you choose? Tell me, will you help them, or will you help us?" Huadahong roared. Princess Hufeng's face turned pale. She had thought about these questions a long time ago, but she didn't have an answer in her heart, because she didn't know what she would do when that day came. She couldn't let go of this relationship. She couldn't let go of her family and people either. Ill-fated relationship. Ill-fated relationship. Huadahong cried out. There were so many talented youths in the world. Why did it have to be this golden-winged wolf king? The white-eyed wolf looked at the struggling Princess Hufeng and felt extremely distressed. He held her hand tightly and comforted her. "Don't worry, we'll cross that bridge when we get there. When the time comes, there will definitely be a better way." Princess Hufeng looked up at the white-eyed wolf. When their eyes met, the worries in her heart finally disappeared. Immediately after, she lowered her head to look at Huadahong and said with a smile, "Grandfather, I know you're doing this for my own good, but I really don't want to sit alone in a corner and cry in regret when I'm old. I want to cherish the present." As soon as she finished speaking, she grabbed the ingrate's hand tightly. Hearing this, Huadahong felt powerless as he looked at their tightly clasped hands. Princess Hufeng said with a smile, "Grandfather, you must be tired after all these years. Go back and have a good rest. Leave the matter of the Sky Bell divine treasure to me." "What?" Hua Dahong's gaze trembled as he looked at Princess Huifeng in shock. Go back and rest? Wasn't this the same as asking him to leave the Sky Bell Divine Treasure? One had to know. Right now, there was only one way to leave the Sky Bell Divine Treasure, and that was to destroy his own body and soul. Madman and the others looked at each other in dismay. They originally thought that this woman would plead for Hua Dahong and allow everyone to continue cooperating, but they didn't expect that she would directly ask him to leave. This was equivalent to asking Hua Dahong to commit suicide. Grandfather, I know that doing this is very unfilial, but there's no other way. After doing such a thing, they can no longer trust you. Besides, the Sky Bell Divine Treasure is indeed very dangerous. If you stay here, I won't be at ease. Princess Huifeng smiled apologetically. Hua Dahong looked at Princess Huifeng in a daze. He never thought that this granddaughter of his, who he had always regarded as a treasure, would actually ask him to commit suicide to apologize for a few outsiders.
Haha, suddenly.
Hua Dahong smiled miserably and nodded. All right, this is the good granddaughter that I have painstakingly raised. Not bad at all. You have a conscience. I'm sorry, but I promise you that I will definitely bring back a few more sovereign divine weapons. And when I go back, I will personally find you to apologize. At that time, you can punish me however you want. Princess Huifeng said. Haha. Hua Dahong couldn't stop laughing, his entire body emitting a desolate aura.
Suddenly,
a destructive aura roared out from his body, and his entire body directly exploded in the void. Self-destruction. The void mirror took action and erased the fluctuations of the self-destruction. Blood Ancestor let out a long sigh of relief. At least he didn't look forward to it in vain. This little girl was indeed not bad. But he raised his head and looked at the white-eyed wolf and Princess Huifeng, a trace of worry appearing in his eyes. Although Princess Huifeng's attitude was very firm, the two of them couldn't avoid the future foam people and had to face it.
Sigh.
Princess Huifeng sighed in her heart. She turned her head to look at Madman, and Qin Feiyang's incarnation and apologized. I'm sorry. It's okay. Anyway, even if he has his way, I won't die. Madman waved his hand. Princess Huifeng was slightly stunned when she heard this. She turned her head to look at the white-eyed wolf suspiciously and asked, Little Madman, what do you mean by this?
Think about it.
Are we the kind of people who wait for death? Actually, we have already split a wisp of divine soul. Little Qinzi is just an incarnation now. The white-eyed wolf laughed. Incarnation? Princess Huifeng looked at Qin Feiyang's incarnation. The incarnation smiled faintly and immediately dissipated in the void, leaving no trace behind. Seeing the scene, Princess Huifeng was extremely shocked. It turned out that he had a trick up his sleeve. When she came back to her senses, she immediately glared at the white-eyed wolf and said, You actually lied to me? Ahem. The white-eyed wolf coughed dryly and smiled awkwardly. I had no choice. No choice. I think you were just testing me to see if I would help you. As expected of the white-eyed wolf. You're heartless. Princess Huifeng shook off the white-eyed wolf's hand and angrily turned away. The white-eyed wolf looked quite embarrassed. He couldn't help but look at the madman and the blood ancestor, as if to say, What should we do now? I'll teach you. Just kill her on the spot. The madman snickered secretly. The blood ancestor rolled his eyes. What kind of rotten idea was this? The white-eyed wolf was extremely speechless. Do you think I'm the same, Zhou Xiaoxian? He ran in front of Princess Huifeng and laughed dryly. I apologize. I admit my mistake. Why don't you beat me up? Anyway, I have thick skin. I can take a beating. Thick skin? Take a beating? Princess Huifeng didn't know whether to laugh or cry. How could he apologize like this? He was simply a scoundrel. Ha! You can't bear to beat me up, right? The white-eyed wolf grinned. Who says I can't bear to? Princess Huifeng raised her fist and punched the white-eyed wolf's chest. The white-eyed wolf immediately squatted in the void, clutching his chest and screaming. Princess Huifeng was stunned. She didn't seem to use much strength. Why was it so painful? He must be pretending. Humph. Pretending to be pitiful to gain sympathy? I won't fall for that.
Whoosh.
At this moment, Qin Feiyang also flew over with a group of sovereign divine weapons. Looking at the white-eyed wolf howling miserably, he couldn't help but be stunned. He looked suspiciously at the two and asked, "What's going on? What else could it be?" Acting pitiful and asking for forgiveness, the madman pursed his lips. Qin Feiyang shook his head and laughed. He and his incarnation could sense each other, so he knew what had happened here. Princess Huifeng also looked at Qin Feiyang with a displeased expression. She snorted and said, "Are you satisfied with this result?" Ahem. Qin Feiyang coughed and laughed dryly. "I'm doing this for your and Brother Wolf's lifelong happiness. So, I have to thank you." Princess Huifeng couldn't help but laugh. "We're family. There's no need to thank me." Qin Feiyang hurriedly waved his hand. Princess Huifeng rolled her eyes and looked down at the white-eyed wolf. She said angrily, "How long are you going to pretend?" "Why should I pretend?" The white-eyed wolf said angrily. "You're not pretending?" Princess Huifeng frowned and squatted down to look at the white-eyed wolf. She said anxiously, "But I really didn't use any strength. It's true that you didn't use much strength, but my current situation is different. When I fought with the Queen of Flames, I was already seriously injured. My internal organs were shattered." The white-eyed wolf roared in pain. Large beads of sweat appeared on his forehead as if he was suffering from inhuman torture. This, Princess Huifeng suddenly panicked. Qin Feiyang and the other two couldn't help but frown. "So, it wasn't an act? Are you trying to murder your husband?" The white-eyed wolf stared at Princess Huifeng angrily. "I didn't do it on purpose." "Really?" Princess Huifeng quickly apologized. She took out a divine life pill and placed it in front of the white-eyed wolf's mouth. "Hurry up and take it." The white-eyed wolf looked at the divine life pill and then at the anxious Princess Huifeng. A sly look flashed in his eyes.
Suddenly,
he hugged Princess Huifeng and kissed Princess Huifeng on the cheek. Huh? Faced with this sudden sneak attack, Princess Huifeng was startled. The white-eyed wolf chuckled. "Silly woman, even if my internal organs are shattered, with my cultivation it's nothing." Princess Huifeng was stunned. Was she fooled again? "Give up. You're no match for me." The white-eyed wolf hugged Princess Huifeng tightly, with a smug look on his face. "You bastard." Princess Huifeng was furious. Not only did he lie to her, but he also took advantage of her. Just now, he even kissed her. Her cheeks were extremely red. "Damn it. Even we were almost fooled." The madman cursed. Qin Feiyang and the blood ancestor also looked helpless. This was the so-called too much concern. With their current cultivation, even if their bodies were shattered, they wouldn't be in danger, let alone just a little injury. Qin Feiyang looked at the white-eyed wolf and the blood ancestor and said, "That's enough. Don't keep showing off in front of us." "That's right. Have you considered the feelings of us old people?" The blood ancestor pouted. Ahem. Daifuku also coughed to make his presence known. Looking at Qin Feiyang and the others' strange gazes, Princess Huifeng immediately lowered her head and complained, "It's all your fault." "Yes, yes, yes." The white-eyed wolf nodded and stared at Qin Feiyang and the others. He said angrily, "If you don't like it, don't look at it. I think you're an eyesore." Chapter 3750. Qin Feiyang and the mad scientist's faces darkened. Who was the one pretending to be pure before? Now that they had finally broken through, they were starting to get lovey-dovey? Why didn't they just ascend to the heavens? Qin Feiyang took a deep breath and looked at everyone. "We can't stay here any longer. Let's go somewhere else to recuperate." "Indeed. There's too much commotion. Maybe we'll attract other demon kings." The blood ancestor nodded. Now that all of the sovereign's weapons were asleep, if another demon king were to show up, there would be no way out for them. The white-eyed wolf let go of Princess Huifeng, turned to the divine king, and asked, "Have you confirmed the death of the Queen of Flames?" "We can't get close to the center of the battlefield," the divine king said. Princess Huifeng shook her head. We can't get close either. What happened before? How could there be such a terrifying fluctuation? Ultimate intent. The white-eyed wolf glanced at Qin Feiyong and smiled. This kid replicated the blood ancestor's ultimate intent of death with 3,000 clones and the Eye of Heaven. What? The Eye of Heaven can even replicate an ultimate intent. Princess Huifeng, Daifuku, and the Fire Phoenix sword were all dumbfounded.
Yes.
But it's very slow. The castle and the others fell to this point because they wanted to buy time for him. The white-eyed wolf nodded.
I see.
Princess Huifeng and the mad scientist were enlightened. But even so, it was already shocking enough. 3,000 clones meant 3,000 ultimate intensive law, which was equivalent to 3,000 sovereign divine weapons. Who would dare to fight with such means? There was no doubt. The Queen of Flames and the magic sword were definitely dead. How about this? Let's go and recover first. Let the Divine King and the Golden Crow Pearl stay here for now. After the fluctuations of the battle dissipate, we'll go and confirm it. The white-eyed wolf suggested. That works too. Qin Feiyong nodded. He looked at the two sovereign divine weapons and smiled. Thank you for your hard work. It's nothing, the Ghost Divine King said indifferently.
All right.
Let's retreat. As Qin Feiyong waved his hand, the Crimson Dragon shield wrapped around the three sovereigns, the ancient castle, and the other sovereigns' divine weapons. Then, he turned around and flew away at lightning speed. Let's go too. The white-eyed wolf tugged at Princess Huifeng.
Yes.
Princess Huifeng behaved very obediently. However, when he looked at the Fire Phoenix divine axe, the white-eyed wolf raised his eyebrows. 2 days later, the group of people landed in a canyon. The fiend ancestor immediately set up a time array. The white-eyed wolf also activated the law of life. The mad scientist, the blood ancestor, and the other sovereigns' divine weapons all began to cultivate. The white-eyed wolf walked to Qin Feiyong and said, Little Qinzi, should we target the Fire Phoenix divine axe? Qin Feiyong glanced at the Fire Phoenix divine axe floating next to Princess Huifeng. His eyes flashed. This sovereign divine weapon had tried to suppress the void mirror. It was obvious that it was completely on Huidahong's side. If they didn't target it, it might become a hidden danger. After pondering for a while, Qin Feiyong said, There's no hurry. We'll deal with it after the ancient castle is repaired. They? The white-eyed wolf was stunned. That's right. Not only the Fire Phoenix divine axe, but also the Fire Phoenix divine sword and the other sovereign's divine weapons. Qin Feiyong nodded. What do you mean? The white-eyed wolf became more and more suspicious. Some things aren't as simple as you think. The foam people will definitely oppose Princess Huifeng if she's with you. I've also discussed it with Senior Brother and the Blood Ancestor. When she returns to the Phoenix Nest, she might be punished by Feng Ho. I don't need to tell you how powerful Feng Ho is, right? So, if we want to protect Princess Huifeng, we must have enough bargaining chips to threaten Feng Ho. And the Foam People's sovereign divine weapons are undoubtedly the best bargaining chips. Qin Feiyong's eyes flashed. The white-eyed wolf said suspiciously, You mean to make the Fire Phoenix divine weapon and the other sovereign's divine weapons swear a blood oath to only listen to her?
Yes.
Only then will Princess Huifeng have the right to speak to the Foam People. By then, even Feng Ho won't dare to do anything to her. Because of the Phoenix Empress. She was also afraid that if she forced the Fire Phoenix First Princess into a corner, she would take these sovereign weapons and leave the Phoenix clan. If that's the case, the Foam People won't even have a single sovereign divine weapon. Qin Feiyong thought to himself.
Nice.
The white-eyed wolf gave him a thumbs up. As long as Princess Huifeng had the right to control these sovereign divine weapons, it would be the same as grabbing the lifeline of the Foam People. To put it bluntly, by then, even Feng Ho would have to suck up to her. Opposite. Princess Huifeng looked at the two of them suspiciously. She put away all the sovereign divine weapons, including the Fire Phoenix divine axe. Then, she walked up to the two of them and asked, What are you mumbling about? The Fire Phoenix divine axe was very obedient now. After all, even Huadahong was dead. What else could it do? Nothing. The white-eyed wolf waved his hand and chuckled. Sister Feng, why don't we take a walk around? While we're at it, we can cultivate feelings. Sister Feng. Qin Feiyang was stunned. Princess Huifeng was also a little surprised. Wasn't this a little too boring? Let's go. So that some people won't be envious and jealous when they see us loving each other. The white-eyed wolf grabbed Princess Huifeng and left Qin Feiyang behind. I'll be jealous of you? The corner of Qin Feiyang's mouth twitched. You're thinking too much. Who hasn't fallen in love before? Half a month later. Whoosh! Accompanied by a sonic boom, two divine weapons streaked across the sky like lightning and landed in the sky above the canyon. They were the Ghost Divine King Throne and the Golden Crow Divine Pearl. Half a month had passed, and the time array had been 15,000 years. The Blood Ancestor's injuries had healed, and the crazy man's divine soul had also recovered. They were now rebuilding their bodies. It would take a long time for the castle and the group of sovereign divine weapons to be completed. Sensing the arrival of the two divine weapons, Qin Feiyang and the Blood Ancestor opened their eyes and got up to greet them. They asked nervously, "How is it?" "Queen Flame is dead." The Ghost Divine King Throne laughed excitedly. "That's good." Qin Feiyang and the Blood Ancestor looked at each other and heaved a sigh of relief. Then, they looked at the Ghost Divine King Throne and asked with a smile, "Why are you so excited?" Queen Flame is one of the 10 demon kings. In our eyes, she's like a god. And now, we've killed a demon king with our own hands. How can we not be excited? The Ghost Divine King Throne said. Qin Feiyang and the Blood Ancestor laughed.
Wait. Suddenly.
Qin Feiyang frowned and asked suspiciously, "Why are you talking about Queen Flame and the Flame Magic Sword?" "The Flame Magic Sword. Ha. This is a surprise we prepared for you." The two sovereign divine weapons chuckled. A surprise? Qin Feiyang and the Blood Ancestor were confused. The Golden Crow Divine Pearl suddenly shone brightly, and a thumb-sized fragment flew out of its body and floated in front of Qin Feiyang and the Blood Ancestor.
Huh?
Qin Feiyang and the Blood Ancestor looked at the Golden Crow Divine Pearl in surprise. No need to be surprised. There's always a universe inside my body, the Golden Crow Divine Pearl said. Qin Feiyang asked, "So, it can hold everything like the cauldron of all things?" "It's too exaggerated to hold everything. It's still possible to hold some things." The Golden Crow Divine Pearl smiled. Qin Feiyang nodded in understanding. His gaze fell on the fragment again, and a trace of bewilderment gradually crept into his eyes. Why is it the energy of the Flame Magic Sword? Could it be that this was a fragment of the Raging Flame's demon sword? That's right. This is a fragment of the Flame Magic Sword. We found it on the battlefield. But we searched the entire battlefield and only found this small piece. The Ghost Divine King said, "What's the use of it?" Qin Feiyang was confused. The Ghost Divine King smiled mysteriously. "Release your divine sense, and you'll know." Qin Feiyang and the Blood Ancestor both released their divine sense and fused it with the fragment. Soon, a hint of shock appeared on their faces. Inside this fragment, there was actually an incomplete consciousness. Could this be? The Blood Ancestor was shocked.
Yes.
The consciousness of the artifact spirit. In other words, the artifact spirit of the Flame Magic Sword hasn't been completely erased. The Ghost Divine King said. Qin Feiyang asked, "In other words, it can still be repaired?"
Yes.
Although it's just a fragment, given enough time, it will be restored to its original state sooner or later.
Why?
This is a pleasant surprise. The Ghost Divine King smiled. Qin Feiyang asked excitedly. In other words, sooner or later, it will be able to reconstruct its original body and return to its peak state. Yes. However, in its current state, it will be a bit difficult to reconstruct its original body. It will definitely be too damaged. The Ghost Divine King said regretfully. Qin Feiyang asked, "What if it's origin energy?" Origin energy? The Ghost Divine King was surprised. You don't really have an independent world, do you? Qin Feiyong smiled. The white-eyed wolf and the golden crow divine pearl told you, right? Yes. The ghost divine king replied. Qin Feiyong nodded. I do have an independent world called the Black Tortoise Realm, but I can't go in right now. You really didn't lie to me? The ghost divine king muttered. We didn't lie to you in the first place, you just didn't believe us. The golden crow divine pearl smiled helplessly. You can't blame me for not trusting you. The ghost divine king smiled bitterly. A mere human actually has an independent world? No one would dare to believe such a thing so easily. Qin Feiyong didn't pursue this matter any further. Because right now, even if he wanted to take the ghost divine king to the Black Tortoise Realm, he couldn't. So he asked, so if you have origin energy, can the flame magic sword be quickly repaired? Of course. It's not an exaggeration to say that as long as you have origin energy, even if it's just a fragment, it can be restored to its original state. But the prerequisite is that you have to subdue it first. Otherwise, when it recovers, it'll be our doomsday again. The ghost divine king spoke of his worries. I know that. And it's not hard to control it now. Qin Feiyong smiled confidently. There's only a fragment left. What's there to be afraid of? The current situation wasn't up to the flame magic sword, but him. Chapter 37:51. Thank you for your hard work. Qin Feiyong looked at the two sovereign divine weapons and smiled. Then, he took the flame magic sword fragment and entered the time array. He definitely couldn't control the flame magic sword now, because the flame magic sword's artifact spirit was also seriously injured. It only had a wisp of consciousness left, and this wisp of consciousness had fallen into a coma. So he had to recover it. Where's the white-eyed wolf? The divine king entered the canyon and didn't see the white-eyed wolf, so he asked suspiciously. He went to cultivate feelings with his woman. Qin Feiyong waved his hand. The divine king said indignantly, I didn't expect that there would be someone in this world who likes this bastard. You seem to be very prejudiced against him? Qin Feiyong and the blood ancestor looked at it suspiciously. It's more than just prejudiced. I want to kill him. The red dragon's shield floating at the side also said fiercely.
Why?
Qin Feiyong and the blood ancestor looked at the two sovereign divine weapons in confusion. He tricked us. The divine king was furious. Qin Feiyong and the blood ancestor looked at each other and shook their heads with a bitter smile. It would be abnormal if the white-eyed wolf didn't trick them. How did he trick you? The blood ancestor was curious. When he met us, he said he wanted to play a game with us. At first, we didn't take it to heart. We even wanted to tease him. But in the end, we fell into a trap. The divine king sighed. A trap? Qin Feiyong was slightly stunned and asked, It can't be a blood oath, right? Besides a blood oath, what else can it be?
Sigh.
It's our fault for being too naive. We heard that this game is about swearing, so we didn't take it seriously. Hey, don't call us stupid in your hearts. After all, no one would care about this kind of thing. The divine king was very emotional. Don't be emotional. Don't be emotional. We understand. Qin Feiyong hurriedly comforted him. It's good that you understand. Sigh. After that, we just played with him. It didn't matter anyway. But after we all made the blood oath, he suddenly told us that it would come true. Vow fulfilled? Are you kidding me? We definitely don't believe it. However, just as one of our companions was about to end this farce and attack the white-eyed wolf, the heavenly tribulation descended and directly blasted our companion into smithereens, leaving nothing behind. Only then did we realize that we had been tricked by him. The divine king sighed. Another companion? Qin Feiyong and the blood ancestor looked at each other. Suddenly, he remembered the sovereign divine weapon that the edgeless heavy sword had mentioned. The edgeless heavy sword had said that it had witnessed a sovereign divine king's weapon being shattered by the blood oath. Could it be the companion of the ghost divine king and the crimson dragon shield? Is it in the fallen canyon? The blood ancestor asked. How did you know? The divine king asked suspiciously. Qin Feiyong said, The edgeless heavy sword said so. It personally witnessed your companion being obliterated by the blood oath. The edgeless heavy sword? The Divine King scanned the group of sovereign divine weapons. When he saw the battered edgeless heavy sword, he said in astonishment, "So, it's that thing. It was beaten to such a state that I almost didn't recognize it. Are you familiar with it?" Qin Feiyang was curious. "Not familiar. We've only met twice. We don't have much interaction," the Divine King said. Qin Feiyang smiled and said, "So now you have to listen to the white-eyed wolf. What else? We want to resist, but a bloody example is right in front of us. Do we dare?" The two sovereign divine weapons were helpless. Qin Feiyang shook his head and laughed. He thought that the white-eyed wolf must have gone through a lot of risks to subdue these sovereign divine weapons, but he didn't expect it to be so simple. The Divine King asked, "So the edgeless heavy sword has also submitted to you?"
Yes.
Speaking of which, he was also scammed. Qin Feiyang smiled. The Divine King said angrily, "Scammers are everywhere. Don't be so angry. Since you've already followed us, we won't treat you badly." Qin Feiyang comforted. "I hope so." The Divine King sighed and then said expectantly, "But the white-eyed wolf said that he would let us go to the origin source to cultivate. He has to keep his word." "Of course. As long as you follow our sovereign divine weapons, you will be able to enter the origin source. To tell you the truth, there are a lot of heaven-defying divine weapons in the origin source. Many of them have already begun to evolve." Qin Feiyang smiled. "If that's the case, it makes sense." The Divine King sighed. Qin Feiyang smiled and said, "Then I'll have to trouble you to help me pay attention to the surroundings. Don't let skeletons disturb everyone." "No problem." The two sovereign divine weapons said, "Thank you." Qin Feiyang thanked them and sat cross-legged in the time formation, continuing to comprehend the supreme mysteries of the law of life and death. As strands of the power of life and death spread out, the two sovereign divine weapons were surprised again. The Blood Ancestor said, "Don't doubt your eyes. This is the legendary law of life and death." When the two sovereign divine weapons heard this, their hearts were filled with shock. The Golden Crow Divine Pearl was also shocked. To be able to successfully fuse the law of life and death, this was too heaven-defying. In the blink of an eye, another period of time passed. The madman's body was finally reconstructed. When he opened his eyes and saw the flame magic sword fragment, he couldn't help but be surprised. He looked at the Blood Ancestor and asked, "What's the situation?" The Blood Ancestor briefly explained the situation. Hearing this, the madman's eyes flashed. The power of the flame magic sword was obvious to all. If they could subdue it and use it for their own use, who in the Sky Cloud realm would be their match in the future? But then again, it's been so long. The artifact spirit should have awakened by now. The Blood Ancestor muttered as he looked at the fragment. "Old Qin, don't be in a hurry to cultivate. I have something to discuss with you." The madman woke up Qin Feiyang. "What is it?" Qin Feiyang opened his eyes and looked at him suspiciously. "The inheritance of the two ultimate mysteries." The madman bared his teeth. "I knew you were thinking about them." Qin Feiyang was speechless. "I risked my life to get the inheritance. Of course I have to cherish it." The madman smiled and said, "I'm not greedy. Just give me the inheritance of the Law of Thunder." "But didn't you already comprehend the supreme mysteries of the Law of Thunder? Isn't it a bit of a waste to fuse with the inheritance of the ultimate mysteries?" Qin Feiyang asked. "Waste what? Isn't my Law of Thunder missing the ultimate mysteries? It would be a real waste if I give it to you. After all, you've already comprehended the epitome of the Law of Thunder." The madman curled his lips. Qin Feiyang was stunned. "According to what you said, I comprehended the epitome of the Law of Thunder first, and I'm still at a disadvantage. If you didn't comprehend the epitome of the Law of Thunder, I will definitely not fight with you. I will generously give it to you." The madman laughed. "Do you think I believe you?" Qin Feiyang rolled his eyes. "It doesn't matter if you believe it or not. Anyway, this is the truth in front of you. Hurry up, don't waste time," the madman urged. When he grasped the ultimate mysteries of the Law of Thunder, although he still wasn't a match for the sovereign weapon, he wouldn't have to be so afraid when facing the reclusive old antiques of the three races. Qin Feiyong shook his head and laughed. He took out the inheritance of the Law of Thunder and threw it to the madman. This is the inheritance of the ultimate mysteries? The white-eyed wolf didn't come back earlier or later. He just had to come back at this time with Princess Huifeng and stared at the inheritance in the madman's hand. What a coincidence. The madman laughed and hurriedly protected the inheritance behind him as if he was guarding against a thief. Is there a need? A mere Law of Thunder. This brother doesn't care about it. The white-eyed wolf snorted. That's right, that's right. To be able to enter Brother Wolf's eyes, it must be the strongest law. The madman laughed happily. He was waiting for you to say this. Cough, cough. The white-eyed wolf was embarrassed. He thought that with the madman's personality, he would definitely sing a different tune. Then, he could find an excuse to snatch it from the madman's hands. But he didn't expect the madman to be so good at talking.
Suddenly,
his eyes turned and glanced at Qin Feiyong.
What?
Qin Feiyong also stared at him with vigilance. Is it interesting? We are all brothers. Is there a need to be so guarded against me? I feel like in your eyes, I'm like a bandit. The white-eyed wolf roared angrily. More or less. Qin Feiyong and the madman nodded at the same time with tacit understanding. The white-eyed wolf was so angry that he went crazy. He walked in front of Qin Feiyong, and his attitude instantly changed. He smiled slyly and said, "Don't you have a Law of Fire inheritance?" "That's right." Qin Feiyong nodded and asked suspiciously, "What's wrong?" The white-eyed wolf laughed and said, "It's the ultimate inheritance of the Law of Fire. It's useless for you to keep it. Why don't you give it to Sister Feng? Doesn't she just happen to grasp the Law of Fire?" So it's like that. Qin Feiyong and the madman looked at each other and revealed a look of realization. What Law of Fire inheritance? Didn't you guys get the ultimate inheritance of the strongest Law of Fires? Princess Huifeng was a little confused. That's what I used to fool your grandfather. They got the ultimate inheritance of the Law of Fire and the Law of Thunder, the white-eyed wolf said. I see. Princess Huifeng nodded in realization. She couldn't help but show a trace of regret. She looked at the white-eyed wolf and said, "I've already fused with the Law of Fire's miniature, so I don't want it. It's a bit of a waste." Sensible, obedient, and smart. What a good woman. Qin Feiyong and the madman immediately gave her a thumbs up. Princess Huifeng chuckled. Her flattery skills were really not that good. Don't talk so much nonsense. It's not like you don't know that the Law of Fire is just a key to opening the ultimate door. Even with the Law of Fire, it doesn't mean that you can really comprehend the ultimate meaning. Taking a step back, even if you can comprehend the ultimate meaning, it will take a long time. It might take tens of millions of years, or even hundreds of millions of years. Furthermore, she is now your sister-in-law. As her brothers, shouldn't you give her a greeting gift? The white-eyed wolf coldly snorted. Hearing this, Princess Huifeng's cheeks suddenly blushed. She hugged the white-eyed wolf's arm like a little bird. Sister-in-law? Hee hee, let's talk about it after you guys get married. The madman laughed strangely. The white-eyed wolf stared at the madman angrily and said angrily, "It seems that I can only use my ultimate move. Otherwise, you guys won't submit."
Come at me.
Qin Feiyong and the madman looked at him provocatively. Chapter 3752. The white-eyed wolf let go of Princess Huifeng and pulled Qin Feiyong and the mad scientist to the side. Why are you being so mysterious? The blood ancestor was speechless. Daifuku and Princess Huifeng looked at each other in confusion. What was he trying to do? Tell me, what are you hiding? Qin Feiyong and the mad scientist also looked at the white-eyed wolf suspiciously. The white-eyed wolf glanced at Princess Huifeng and whispered something in their ears.
What?
When Qin Feiyong and the other man heard this, they were dumbstruck. What do you think? She's your sister-in-law now, right? The white-eyed wolf grinned like a wretched old man.
No.
How long have you two been together? What's done can't be undone. This progress is too fast. The mad scientist looked at him in shock. Do you think it's you and Xiaoxian? I'm all about efficiency. The white-eyed wolf smiled smugly. The mad scientist's face darkened and he said angrily, What's wrong with me and Xiaoxian? We're in a pure relationship, not like you, who thinks about all kinds of nonsense all the time. A pure relationship? Are you kidding me? If you don't have the guts, just say it. Stop making excuses. The white-eyed wolf looked at him with disdain. Who doesn't have the guts? The mad scientist's face darkened, and he was a little angry. Then show us what you've done. The white-eyed wolf looked at the mad scientist with a mocking face, which made the mad scientist so angry that he almost went crazy. Qin Feiyong looked at the mad scientist seriously and asked, Senior, you've been with Xiaoxian for so long and even lived together. Don't tell me you really didn't do anything? How is that possible? Do I have to report to you in advance if I want to do something? The mad scientist snorted. Keep pretending. I think, at most, they'll just hold hands and touch lips. White-eyed wolf did not bother to hide his mockery.
Who said that?
Humph. I'm just keeping a low profile. I don't like to show off. Madman snorted coldly, looking very guilty. Yes, yes, yes. You're the best. I remember the night you confessed. You almost forced yourself on me. The white-eyed wolf grimaced. Of course, the madman smiled proudly, but before he could finish, his expression froze. He glared angrily at the white-eyed wolf and said, Why do you sound like I'm a beast?
I didn't say that.
You admitted it yourself. White-eyed wolf quickly waved his hands. Scram. Madman glared at the white-eyed wolf and then at Princess Hufeng. He said in a low voice, Since what's done is done, you have to take responsibility for others. Of course. Although I'm unrestrained, I've always been faithful to my feelings. White-eyed wolf patted his chest, flaunting the image of a peerless man. He then chuckled and said, So look at this inheritance of the law of fire. Since it's already like this, what else is there to say? Qin Feiyong and the mad scientist looked at each other and smiled. They then strode toward Princess Hufeng with bright smiles on their faces. What's going on? Princess Hufeng looked at the two in confusion. The two walked in front of Princess Hufeng. Qin Feiyong took out the inheritance of the law of fire and said with a smile, Sister-in-law, we're a family from now on. Don't be polite with us. Yes, yes, yes. If Brother Wolf dares to bully you, come find us. We'll definitely help you. The mad scientist also nodded and smiled. Seeing this scene, Princess Hufeng was a little dazed. What was going on?
Don't just stand there.
Hurry up and accept it. Qin Feiyong stuffed the inheritance into Princess Hufeng's hands. By the way, I wish you two a long life together and have children soon. The mad scientist bared his teeth. Princess Hufeng looked at the two in shock. What was going on? In the blink of an eye, their attitudes had changed 180 degrees. Since it's their good intentions, why are you still being polite with them? White-eyed wolf walked in front of Princess Hufeng and reached out to hug Princess Hufeng's slender waist. Princess Hufeng said, But I've already fused with the law of fire. Qin Feiyong turned to the blood ancestor and asked, Ancestor, after fusing with the law of fire, can it still be separated? Of course not. The blood ancestor shook his head. That's fine. Isn't it just a law of fire? It doesn't matter. Qin Feiyong waved his hand and smiled. Madman nodded and said, Yes, yes, yes. The most important thing is that the two of you have to be happy. Work hard and give Brother Wolf a big fat boy as soon as possible. Of course, a daughter is fine too. A daughter is more considerate. Princess Hufeng's cheeks turned red. She reached out to pinch White-eyed Wolf's arm and asked in a low voice, What exactly did you say to them? Nothing, nothing. I just reasoned with them. They're all reasonable people. Once I say something, they'll understand. Don't pinch me. It hurts, White-eyed Wolf wailed. I think you're not telling me the truth at all. Princess Hufeng snorted coldly. Madman rolled his eyes and looked at White-eyed Wolf sneakily. Then now, do you want to take sister-in-law to a place where there's no one and continue to improve your relationship?
Ha!
Princess Huifeng looked at Madman. A place where there's no one? Continue to improve their relationship? Why did these words sound so awkward? Of course. Sister Feng, let's go. White-eyed wolf pulled Princess Huifeng and left. Daifuku scratched his head and looked at the group of people in confusion. Who could tell him what was going on? Daifuku, young man, you don't have to worry. Let's go. Before we came to the Sky Bell Divine Treasury, I brought a lot of divine wine. Let's go and have a few cups to celebrate. Madman walked to Daifuku's side and put his arm around his shoulder with a smile. Celebrate what? Daifuku was puzzled. Of course, it's to celebrate my brother Wolf and your princess. Madman originally wanted to say that the two of them had finally come to fruition, but his eyes suddenly rolled. This Daifuku was an old man. Perhaps his thinking was a little old-fashioned. It was better not to tell him. What happened between my princess and the golden-winged wolf king? Daifuku was puzzled. What else? Isn't it just that I'm happy to see them finally together? Don't ask so much. Let's not go home until we're drunk today. Madman chuckled. Originally, he was still planning to use some tricks to let the white-eyed wolf cook this pot of rice first. This way, Princess Huifeng would be completely tied up. But he didn't expect the white-eyed wolf to be so capable. He didn't even need to carry out his plan. This was a good thing. Wasn't it worth celebrating? What's going on? The blood ancestor was also full of questions. Nothing. Qin Feiyong shook his head and smiled. If it's nothing, why are you so generous? The blood ancestor didn't believe it. Qin Feiyong said helplessly, Ancestor, why are you so slow? We've already congratulated them in advance. What else can happen? Have a child soon, the blood ancestor murmured. Suddenly, he looked at Qin Feiyong in shock and asked in a low voice, Could it be that they have already? Show. Qin Feiyong hurriedly made a shushing gesture, indicating that Daifuku was still nearby and that he couldn't let him know. This wolf cub is quite efficient. The blood ancestor chuckled. Qin Feiyong smiled and looked at the magic sword fragment floating next to him. He asked suspiciously, It hasn't woken up yet? I don't think so. The blood ancestor shook his head and then said, But logically speaking, it has been so long. It should have woken up by now. The two of them pondered for a while. As if thinking of something, they looked up and smiled at each other. They immediately walked to the fragment and injected their divine senses into it. They immediately found that the artifact spirit hidden in the fragment had already recovered. Pretending to be asleep? The blood ancestor sneered and stared at the magic sword fragment. Do you think you can avoid the fate of being controlled by pretending to be asleep? Don't be a smart aleck. The artifact spirit didn't move at all. You like pretending to be asleep, right? Then I'll make you sleep forever. Qin Feiyong's eyes flashed coldly. As he waved his hand, the Golden Crow Divine Pearl and the other two Dominator Divine weapons flew over and surrounded the fragment.
Don't.
Let's talk. The demon sword's voice finally sounded, carrying a trace of fear that could not be dispelled. Indeed, it had woken up a long time ago, but when it saw that it had fallen into the hands of Qin Feiyong and the others, it knew that once it woke up, it would definitely be controlled, so it had been pretending to be asleep and waiting for an opportunity to escape. But it didn't expect that Qin Feiyong and the blood ancestor would still find it. It seems that you're also afraid of death. The blood ancestor sneered. The artifact spirit trembled. Who wasn't afraid of death? Not to mention a Dominator divine weapon of its level. Life was more important than anything else. I'm not going to waste time with you. Either you make a blood oath now and be loyal to us forever, or I'll let the Golden Crow Divine Pearl and the others completely destroy you. You should know how easy it is for the Golden Crow Divine Pearl and the others to destroy you in your current state. Qin Feiyong said indifferently. The magic sword fragment trembled slightly. As expected, it couldn't escape the fate of being controlled. Hurry up. There's a limit to my patience. Qin Feiyong said, Actually, we can talk. You killed the Queen of Flames. The Primal Chaos Divine King and the 9 Demon Kings definitely won't let you go, but as long as you let me go, I can plead for you. The primal chaos divine king's strength isn't just a little terrifying. Even I am no match for him. The magic sword wanted to use the primal chaos divine king to scare Qin Feiyang and the others, but it underestimated the courage of Qin Feiyang and the others. Back then, the Blood Ancestor and the Feather Emperor even dared to break into the primal chaos divine king's nest. So, why would the Blood Ancestor be afraid? Without waiting for the magic sword to finish, the Blood Ancestor's eyes were filled with murderous intent. He grabbed the Crimson Dragon shield and smashed it directly at the fragment.
No.
I surrender. I swear now. The magic sword roared. You really are a wretch who bullies the weak and fears the strong. The Blood Ancestor sneered. Yes, 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 I'm a wretch. The magic sword flattered again and again, not daring to be presumptuous at all. If it was any other time, if anyone dared to humiliate it like this, it would definitely turn hostile on the spot. But it couldn't do anything now. People under the eaves had to bow their heads. Then, under the guidance of Qin Feiyang, it made a blood oath of loyalty. Chapter 3753. Since the blood oath had been made, he naturally didn't need to fear the Raging Flame's magic sword anymore. No matter how strong it was, it had to obey. Now, Qin Feiyang actually hoped that the Raging Flame's magic sword could recover quickly. Because as long as the Raging Flame's magic sword recovered to its peak state, no one except the Divine King of Chaos and the 9 Demon Kings would be a match for him in the Sky Bell Divine Treasure. Since I've already submitted to you, there are some things I must tell you. The artifact spirit suddenly spoke.
What?
Qin Feiyang looked at it in confusion. Don't provoke the Divine King of Chaos and the other 9 Demon Kings. Back then, the Blood Ancestor and Feather Emperor stole the secret technique and angered the Divine King of Chaos. Now, you killed the Queen of Flames. With the new and old grudges added together, the Divine King of Chaos will definitely be furious. He might even take the initiative to send people to look for you. So from now on, not only can you not provoke them, it's best to keep a low profile. As for me, not to mention now that I'm only a fragment, even if I'm at my peak state, I'm no match for the Divine King of Chaos and the Chaos Royal City. So don't expect me to help you. The Raging Flame's magic sword's tone was extremely solemn, and its attitude was also extremely serious. We didn't expect you at all. With your injuries, it's impossible for you to recover before we leave the Sky Bell Divine Treasure. The Blood Ancestor snorted.
Good that you know.
The Raging Flame's magic sword said,
But
we must find the Divine King of Chaos. The Blood Ancestor spoke again.
What?
The Raging Flame's magic sword was shocked and said angrily, What reason do you have to find him? Don't you know? The Black Flame Demon King kidnapped our companions. The Blood Ancestor frowned. I don't know. All these years, I and the Queen of Flames have been cultivating here. The Raging Flame's magic sword said. No wonder you didn't mention anything about Li Feng and Green Cauldron. The Blood Ancestor nodded and sighed. To be honest, I don't want to provoke the Divine King of Primal Chaos either, but there are some things we must do. Is it worth it? You're all going to die. The Blaze magic sword roared. Perhaps in your eyes, Li Feng and Lu Ding are not worth mentioning. But in our eyes, they are our companions. We can't abandon them. Even if I have to sacrifice my life, I won't hesitate. The Blood Ancestor clenched his fists. Not to mention the Raging Flame Devil Sword. Even Qin Feiyang couldn't help but feel astonished by the Blood Ancestor's words. He hadn't expected the Blood Ancestor to care so much about Li Feng. This seemed to have surpassed his concern for his disciple.
All right.
Since you insist on sending yourselves to your deaths, what else can I say? Just in time. When you die in the hands of the Divine King of Chaos, I will regain my freedom. The Blaze magic sword sneered. Qin Feiyang frowned slightly. He didn't expect that even a sovereign weapon like the Blaze magic sword would be so afraid of the Divine King of Primal Chaos. He asked suspiciously, just how strong are the Divine King of Primal Chaos and the Royal City of Primal Chaos? As former companions, the blaze magic sword should know their strength like the back of its hand. I don't know. However, this answer was far beyond Qin Feiyang's expectations. The blaze magic sword didn't know the strength of the divine king of primal chaos and the royal city of primal chaos. Although we are often together, none of the 10 demon kings or our 10 sovereign weapons know anything about the divine king of primal chaos and the royal city of primal chaos. We only know that the divine king of primal chaos and the royal city of primal chaos have the ability to kill us instantly. In short, no one has seen their true strength, the blaze magic sword said in a low voice. Killed you instantly? Qin Feiyang was shocked. That's right. It's a complete instant kill. Back then, the Queen of Flames went against the divine king of primal chaos because of something. In the end, she was suppressed by the divine king of primal chaos with a single hand. When the blaze magic sword said this, its voice was filled with fear. No way. Qin Feiyang was shocked. This was too scary. The blood progenitor looked at the blaze magic sword and asked, "Then what grade is your sovereign weapon?" "Mid-grade." The blaze magic sword said.
What?
Mid-grade. Qin Feiyang and the blood progenitor looked at each other. Mid-grade sovereign weapons were the strong? They had originally thought that the blaze magic sword would be at least a high-grade sovereign weapon, but it turned out that it was only a mid-grade sovereign weapon. If a mid-grade sovereign weapon was the strong, then how terrifying would a high-grade or peak-grade sovereign weapon be? Facing our mid-grade sovereign weapons, you would need at least 10 low-grade sovereign weapons to be qualified to fight us. So, when you fought the Queen of Flames, it was very unwise. At that time, if all your sovereign weapons had attacked me first, 12 of them could have seriously injured me in a short time. Then, when you faced the Queen of Flames later, you wouldn't have to work so hard. The blaze magic sword said. Qin Feiyang and the blood progenitor looked at each other. The situation at that time was indeed so. First, the Sword of Thanatos and the other 4 sovereign weapons stalled the blaze magic sword, so that the Sword of Thanatos and the other 4 sovereign weapons would be seriously injured first. Without the Death God's sword and the other 4 sovereign divine weapons, the ancient castle and the other 8 sovereign divine weapons were having a hard time fighting against the fiery Inferno sword. However, it was also because they didn't understand the situation. If they had known in advance, they would have targeted the blaze magic sword first. Although with your current strength, you have a chance of winning against 1 demon king. If you face 9 demon kings at the same time, you will only be courting death. After all, the 9 demon kings are very strong, and their sovereign weapons are all mid-grade sovereign weapons. If you can't even beat the 9 demon kings, let alone the Primal Chaos Divine King and the Primal Chaos Royal City. To tell you the truth, even if the 10 Demon Kings worked together, they wouldn't be able to beat the Primal Chaos Divine King and the others. The blaze magic sword sighed. Qin Feiyang felt his scalp go numb. How terrifying was the Primal Chaos Divine King and the Primal Chaos Royal City. He couldn't help but look at the blood progenitor and ask, "Ancestor, how did you escape from them back then?" "Luck. When they found us back then, we immediately ran away. At that time, only the 10 demon kings were chasing us. The Primal Chaos Divine King and the Primal Chaos Royal City didn't chase after us personally. Perhaps they thought that we wouldn't be able to escape the pursuit of the 10 demon kings. Moreover, our calculations were very accurate. The 1,000-year time limit was just right. At the critical moment, we escaped from the Sky Bell Divine Treasury and avoided a calamity." The blood progenitor shook his head. "We were indeed careless back then. Otherwise, you wouldn't have been able to escape. But this time, if you dare to provoke them again, let me tell you, you won't be able to survive. Because the Primal Chaos Divine King and the Primal Chaos Royal City will definitely take action, personally." The blaze magic sword snorted. "Even so, we have no way out. We have to go. Of course, if we can rescue Li Feng and the others without anyone knowing, that would be the best." Qin Feiyang said. "Without anyone knowing? Naive. If I'm not wrong, your companions must be imprisoned in the Primal Chaos Royal City this time. How could you sneak into the primal chaos royal city and rescue them without anyone knowing? The blaze magic sword mocked. Qin Feiyong frowned. The blood ancestor was the same. If they were really imprisoned in the primal chaos royal city, that would be a problem.
Wait. Suddenly.
The blood ancestor looked at the blaze magic sword.
What?
This gaze, let me tell you, don't have any ideas about this lord. The blaze magic sword immediately became vigilant. Qin Feiyong also looked at the blood ancestor suspiciously. The blood ancestor laughed. Since we're on the same side now, you must help us. Moreover, you're the easiest person to sneak into the primal chaos royal city. I knew you didn't have good intentions. The blaze magic sword said angrily. Qin Feiyong's eyes lit up. Although the blaze magic sword had already submitted to him, the primal chaos divine king and the others didn't know. As long as the blaze magic sword was willing to help, they could easily enter the primal chaos royal city and find an opportunity to rescue Li Feng and the others. Brother, let's discuss. Qin Feiyong looked at the blaze magic sword with a smile. There's no discussion. Aren't you sending this lord to his death? The blaze magic sword didn't even consider and directly rejected. It was useless to try to get close to him. If they know that you've already submitted to me, then of course they'll be sending themselves to their deaths. But they don't know. As long as you're smart, you'll be fine. Qin Feiyong smiled. Don't be so sure. What if? If they find out, then even if I have 10 lives, I won't be able to escape. The blaze magic sword snorted. Are you not going to listen to me when I'm talking to you properly? Do you know that with your current situation, you have no right to resist? I can totally order you to do so, but I didn't. Instead, I'm using a negotiating attitude with you. Moreover, we'll also support you when the time comes. Qin Feiyong raised his eyebrows and was rather annoyed. But the blaze magic sword was very anxious. You're not done yet. Qin Feiyong stared at it. All right. When the time comes, you have to plan well. It's best if nothing goes wrong. The blaze magic sword was full of helplessness. Why was it so unlucky to be on this pirate ship? That's right. Don't worry, we'll definitely not leave any of our companions behind. Even if we're going to die in the end, we'll live and die together. Qin Feiyong chuckled. Like hell I'll believe you. The blaze magic sword snorted inwardly.
All right.
From now on, you'll restrain your aura and stay in my body at ease. Don't let the sovereign divine weapon and skeleton in the Sky Bell divine treasure see you with us. Qin Feiyong smiled. Before the operation, their relationship with the blaze magic sword had to be kept absolutely secret. The blaze magic sword sighed and retracted its aura. With a stomach full of helplessness, it entered Qin Feiyong's sea of qi. Qin Feiyong looked at the blood ancestor and said with a smile, Ancestor, this is a great crisis. We'll have to rely on you. Understood. Do your best. The blood ancestor nodded. He was also physically and mentally exhausted. He turned to the crimson dragon shield beside him and said with a smile, Why don't you work hard and accompany this ancestor for a stroll nearby? The so-called stroll naturally meant hunting skeletons. Only by absorbing enough souls of the dead could he quickly break through. Chapter 3754. Anyway, I have nothing to do. Whatever. The ghost divine king smiled casually. It had integrated very quickly and was already on the same page as everyone else. Then can this ancestor sit down? The blood ancestor looked at the ghost divine king with anticipation in his eyes. The ghost divine king was originally a chair. If he could sit on it, it would probably be very cool. Don't go too far. The ghost divine king was a little unhappy when he heard this. Just for a while. The blood ancestor pleaded. The ghost divine king was helpless and said reluctantly, You said it would only be for a while. Don't stay up there and not come down later. I won't, I promise. The blood ancestor was overjoyed. He hurriedly ran over and sat down on the ghost divine king's seat. He grabbed the armrests on both sides and looked at Qin Feiyong. He asked, How is it? Qin Feiyong looked up and down for a while and nodded. You really do have the demeanor of an old demon. This was not false at all. The blood ancestor was originally a demon with a murderous aura. With the ghost divine king's seat carved with skulls everywhere, he really looked like a terrifying demon god.
Get lost.
You have no respect for your elders. Old demon? Don't you know that I have already turned over a new leaf? The blood ancestor glared at Qin Feiyong and shouted in high spirits, "Ghost divine king, let's go." The ghost divine king was speechless. Why was he acting like an old child?
Fine.
He would satisfy his vanity. Whoosh. Immediately, the ghost divine king soared into the sky and took the blood ancestor with him. Quite a cute old man. Qin Feiyong shook his head and laughed. In the past, in his eyes, the blood ancestor was just like everyone else. But as he slowly got along with him, he realized that the blood ancestor was not scary at all. Instead, there were many cute things about him. There's a problem with the blaze magic sword. The Queen of Flames seems to have mastered the ultimate meaning of the Law of Fire. Why does she still accept the inheritance of the Law of Fire?
Suddenly,
Qin Feiyong asked in his mind. She's not accepting the inheritance of the Law of Fire, but the inheritance of the Law of Thunder. As for the inheritance of the Law of Fire, she plans to bring it back and give it to the other demon kings. The Inferno Magic Sword said calmly. I see. And here I thought that mastering the ultimate profound would allow me to receive the inheritance. Qin Feiyong shook his head and smiled. You're so silly. The blazing magic sword could not help but look at him in disdain. Qin Feiyong's face darkened. In any case, he was its master now. Didn't he know how to be polite? How arrogant. Time passed slowly. The blood ancestor and the ghost divine king were furiously hunting down skeletons. Qin Feiyong was doing his best to comprehend the laws of life and death. After the madman and Daifuka finished drinking, they also entered the time array to cultivate in seclusion. The injuries of the sovereign divine weapons in the ancient castle were also getting better day by day. As for the ingrate and Princess Hufeng, they were extremely tired of each other. They were people in love. No matter if it was cultivation or anything else, they were inseparable from each other.
Just like that.
1 year passed. 1 year outside was already more than 360,000 years in the time array. The various sovereign divine weapons woke up one after another, but because their injuries were too serious this time, their bodies were not completely recovered. Day after day, another year passed. The bodies of the various sovereign divine weapons were finally restored to their peak state. However, the madman's inheritance of the Law of Thunder had not been completed yet. One must know. 2 years added up, which was more than 700,000 years in the time array. For more than 700,000 years to not be able to fully comprehend the inheritance, one could imagine that even if it was an inheritance, it would not be a simple matter to completely grasp it. Even the ultimate profound was like this, let alone the law of miniature. Just as the white-eyed wolf said, even if he comprehended the law of miniature, it would only open the door to the ultimate profound. To comprehend the ultimate profound was as difficult as ascending to the heavens. Not to mention the ultimate profound. Even the ultimate profound had stumped Qin Feiyong this time. After so many years in the time array, the ultimate profound of the law of life and death was like a mountain blocking in front of him. It was many times more difficult than comprehending the ultimate profound of the various ultimate profound. It could be said that his gains over the years were very little, almost negligible. One must know. And now it was under the premise of the law of miniature. Without the law of life and death, not to mention the ultimate profound, even the ultimate profound would take an unknown amount of time. He wanted to give up now. Rather than wasting time like this, it was better to comprehend the ultimate profound of the other ultimate profound first. The ultimate profound of the law of slaughter, the law of strength, the law of wind, and the law of light had not been comprehended yet. However, there was no law of miniature for these 4 ultimate profound now. It was not easy to comprehend the ultimate profound. For example, the ultimate profound of the law of war and the law of karma were comprehended by him. Forget it. I should continue comprehending the ultimate profound of the law of life and death. He could not give up halfway. Another year passed. Qin Feiyang and the others had been in seclusion here for more than 3 years.
Boom.
On this day, a terrifying aura suddenly rushed out of the madman's body. The surroundings instantly turned into a sea of lightning. With the appearance of this sea of lightning, a shocking heavenly might suddenly enveloped this world. Qin Feiyang and Daifuku were shocked. They immediately opened their eyes and looked at the madman. They saw that the madman was currently roaring with all kinds of lightning energy. There was flame-like fire lightning. There was blood-like blood lightning. There was also golden divine lightning, purple divine lightning, and black divine lightning. In short, all the lightning energy that existed in the world appeared on his body. With thousands of lightning gathered on his body, it was as if an ancient thunder god was born. Especially his eyes. All kinds of lightning intertwined like a pair of heavenly eyes, giving off a great pressure. Whether it was Qin Feiyang or Daifuku, a sense of fear rose in their hearts. It was as if they were insignificant ants in front of the madman. With a wave of his hand, he could crush them into pieces. The ancient castle and the other sovereign weapons were also awakened. They immediately released their divine might to protect Qin Feiyang and Daifuku, as well as the time array. This is the strength of the ultimate profound, Qin Feiyang murmured. Although he did not grasp the ultimate profound, he still could not control the joy in his heart. Because they were all brothers, it did not matter who grasped the ultimate profound. The madman gradually opened his eyes and scanned the roaring lightning energy around him. It was as if he did not dare to believe that he had grasped the ultimate profound. Senior brother, I'm not dreaming. This is real. Qin Feiyang smiled. I'm not dreaming. It's real. The madman murmured and turned to look at Qin Feiyang.
Hun.
Qin Feiyang nodded. The madman looked at the lightning energy around him again. His eyes slowly became sharp as he muttered, Finally, I've finally grasped an ultimate profound. Haha. The bitter is over and the sweet is coming. Immediately, he raised his head and laughed, his expression filled with excitement. Daifuku laughed. Let us see the power of the ultimate profound. I'll satisfy you. The madman raised his hand and waved. The roaring lightning energy around him turned into a torrent that rushed into the clouds.
Boom. Kacha.
Lightning flashed and thunder rumbled in the dark sky. Waves of lightning flooded the sky like a tide. The heavenly might surged, shaking all directions. This is, on the other side.
On a mountain peak.
The white-eyed wolf and Princess Huifeng were also sitting in a time array to meditate. The white-eyed wolf had grasped the law of time, so he could naturally set up a time array. However, the time array he set up was not as good as the blood ancestors' time array. 500 years in a day. At this moment, feeling the terrifying heavenly might, the two suddenly opened their eyes and looked up at the sky. Could this be the little madman's law of thunder? The white-eyed wolf murmured. It seems that he has already comprehended the inheritance and grasped the ultimate profound. A smile appeared on Princess Huifeng's sparkling cheeks.
Clang. Suddenly,
accompanied by an earth-shattering boom, a huge pool of lightning appeared at the top of the sky. But it was different from the lightning pool and lightning formed by the fifth profound. This lightning pool was more than 10,000 feet tall and covered the sky. Moreover, in the entire lightning pool, all kinds of lightning energy interweaved together, forming rainbow divine lightning that emitted a destructive power. This is the ultimate profound of the law of thunder. Daifuku's heart couldn't help but tremble at this moment. Just a strand of the rainbow divine lightning in the lightning pool was enough to shatter his body. Let this lord test how powerful this is. The death god's sword let out a long roar and charged into the clouds, slashing towards the lightning pool.
Ha!
The madman bared his teeth. With a wave of his hand, the rainbow divine lightning in the lightning pool was like a flood that flooded the sky and surged towards the death god's sword. Along with a loud rumble, the two collided and created a wave of destructive energy. The rainbow divine lightning was annihilated on the spot. But the Death God's sword was also forced back a step. One must know. The Death God's sword was a sovereign divine weapon. To be able to force it back a step was already very impressive. But it wasn't over yet. The madman waved his hand again, and the entire lightning pool moved. Like a towering mountain shining with divine light, it carried a monstrous power and charged towards the Death God's sword. Interesting. The Death God's sword laughed and slashed towards the lightning pool with all its strength. The two collided again. With a loud crack, the lightning pool shattered in the sky. And the Death God's sword was as steady as Mount Tai, not moving at all. Obviously, in the first round, the Death God's sword didn't use its full strength. So weak. The madman couldn't help but frown. Weak. When Qin Feiyang and Daifuka heard this, they couldn't help but want to slap him. Why don't you look at who your opponent is? This is the Death God's sword, a sovereign divine weapon. To be able to fight against the Death God's sword, isn't it strong enough? Not bad. Although you can't truly fight against a sovereign divine weapon, when you meet one in the future, at least you have a chance to resist. The Death God's sword landed in the time array and looked at the madman with a smile. Hearing this, I feel a lot better. Unlike some people who don't even have a chance to resist when they meet a sovereign divine weapon. The madman bared his teeth. Some people? Is there a need to talk about me in such a roundabout way? Qin Feiyang's face darkened, and he rolled his eyes at the madman. Chapter 3755. You know I'm talking about you? The madman laughed. Do you think I don't know you? Qin Feiyang looked at him with disdain before sweeping his gaze across the Heaven Bell divine treasure. He said with a smile, "This is truly a place that makes one reluctant to leave." That's true. If you didn't come to the Sky Bell divine treasury, how could you grasp the ultimate meaning of the law of thunder so quickly? It's simply a treasure land. The madman bared his teeth. But it's also a treasure land full of risks. Qin Feiyang shook his head and smiled. He glanced at the various sovereign divine weapons before looking at the madman and Daifuku. Now that everyone's injuries are almost healed, shouldn't we make the next step of the plan? Then what do you think we should do next? Daifuku asked. The foam people and dragons have been found. Currently, we are still missing the Qilin race, land of buried gods, and heavenly cloud ocean. These three forces should also have agreed on a meeting point in advance. Qin Feiyang pondered and said, "There should be." Daifuka nodded. Let's not talk about the meeting point of the land of buried gods and heavenly cloud ocean. With your understanding of the Qilin race, where do you think they will be arranged? Qin Feiyang looked at Daifuku. How would I know? Although our three races have already formed an alliance before entering the Sky Bell Divine Treasury, it's impossible to truly trust each other. Daifuka shook his head and smiled bitterly. Then it seems that to find them it depends on fate? The madman frowned. Daifuku smiled faintly. Actually, there's no rush. We will meet them sooner or later. As long as we meet one of them, we will naturally know where they are meeting. Qin Feiyang nodded. After pondering for a while, he suddenly slapped his head. What? You like to torture yourself so much. Come, you don't have to do it yourself. I'll do it for you. The madman smiled and raised his arm, about to slap Qin Feiyang's head. Scram. Qin Feiyang slapped the madman's hand away and glared at him. He shook his head and said, "We are now looking for lanterns." What do you mean? The madman was suspicious. Heavenly Star God. Qin Feiyang smiled bitterly.
Ah.
Madman and Big Fortune were astonished. Their gazes immediately turned to the Heavenly Star God, sword floating beside them. You finally remembered me? The Heavenly Star God was a bit. It was clearly right next to them. It was ignored, always ignore, sorry. Qin Feiyang smiled apologetically. It seems that this sovereign sense of existence is simply too weak. This is simply too depressing. Heavenly God, Qin Feiyang and the other two looked at each other and couldn't help but shake their heads and laugh. They didn't expect that a sovereign divine weapon would have such a sentimental side. Qin Feiyang bowed deeply and asked, Where is the gathering place of the Qilan race? As the former ruler weapon of the Qilan race, Patriarch Qi Yifeng, the heavenly star god's sword definitely knew where the Qilan race gathered. Their gathering place is at a place called Black Mountain Canyon. The heavenly star god's sword said. Qin Feiyang and the madman immediately looked at the myriad cauldron, the edgeless heavy sword, and the illusory demon orb. Black Mountain Canyon. The myriad cauldron pondered for a while and said, I know this place. Is it far? Qin Feiyang asked. Not far. Southeast. About half a year's journey. The myriad cauldron said. What? Half a year's journey is not far? The madman was stunned. Is it far? The myriad cauldron was a bit suspicious. The madman couldn't help but smile bitterly. He turned to Qin Feiyang and said, Then let's not delay. Shall we go to the Black Mountain Canyon now?
Wait.
I personally think it's best not to go to the Black Mountain Canyon. The myriad cauldron said.
Why?
Qin Feiyang and the others looked at it in confusion. The myriad cauldron said, It is said that the Black Mountain Canyon was once the birthplace of the Darkness Demon King. Darkness Demon King? Qin Feiyang and the madman were shocked. The myriad cauldron said, One of the 10 great demon kings. No way. Then isn't the fire Qilan race in danger? Qin Feiyang's expression changed. What does the fire Qilan race being in danger have to do with you? Don't worry about it. The madman rolled his eyes. The safety of the fire Qilan race indeed has nothing to do with us, but what about the Qilan Saint-Child and Tanwu? They will definitely go to the Black Mountain Canyon. Qin Feiyang said. The madman slapped his head and said angrily, I forgot about them. Qin Feiyang looked at the myriad cauldron and asked, You mean the Black Mountain Canyon is the nest of the Darkness Demon King? It can't be called a nest. Before becoming one of the 10 great demon kings, he had always been in the Black Mountain Canyon. However, after becoming one of the 10 great demon kings, he followed the Primal Chaos Divine King and left the Black Mountain Canyon. I wonder if he has returned? This sovereign is afraid of what if? The myriad cauldrons said worriedly. What are you afraid of? It's just a Darkness Demon King. With your current foundation, as long as you work together, it won't be hard to deal with him. The raging flame magic sword's voice suddenly sounded.
Eh.
Qin Feiyang and the others were stunned. Was it planning to trap the Darkness Demon King? Another scammer? The Darkness Demon King's Dominator divine weapon is called the Blade of Darkness. This is a true intermediate Dominator divine weapon. Don't you want it? The raging flame magic sword urged. Qin Feiyang and the madman looked at each other, their eyes flashing. That's right. This is what it means to do big things. Don't be afraid. As long as the 9 great demon kings aren't together, as long as you don't encounter the Primal Chaos Divine King and the Primal Chaos Royal City, with your current strength, you can easily deal with them. What I'm afraid of is that you guys are too selfish and scheming against each other. The raging flame magic sword said. Don't worry, a situation like Huadahong won't happen again. Qin Feiyang smiled. That's naturally for the best. However, your expectations might fall short. Because from what this sovereign knows, after the Darkness Demon King followed the Primal Chaos Divine King, he never returned to the Black Mountain Canyon. The raging flame magic sword smiled mockingly. Isn't that even better? To prevent any accidents from happening, the madman bared his teeth. No ambition. The raging flame magic sword looked down on him.
Stop it.
This daddy thinks that you can't wait for us to meet the Primal Chaos Divine King and the 9 great demon kings. After we die in their hands, you can regain your freedom. The madman snorted coldly. The raging flame magic sword laughed and said, I didn't expect that the one who understands this sovereign the most in this world would be a human like you. The madman was speechless. As expected, this was an unreliable bastard. Qin Feiyang turned to the Crimson Dragon's shield and said with a smile, Help me inform the Divine King and tell him and the Blood Ancestor to hurry back. Okay. The Crimson Dragon's shield responded and immediately contacted the Divine King. Qin Feiyang released his divine sense in all directions and soon found the white-eyed wolf and Princess Hurfeng. At the top of the mountain, the white-eyed wolf and Princess Hurfeng retracted their gazes. Little Qin Zi must be looking for us by releasing his divine sense. He might have another plan. You have to be careful from now on. Don't let anything happen to you. The white-eyed wolf grabbed Princess Hurfeng's hand and smiled. Don't worry. There are so many sovereign divine weapons protecting me. How could anything happen to me? You, on the other hand, don't force yourself. After all, you didn't leave your divine soul outside. Princess Hurfeng was concerned. I'll definitely live longer than you. The white-eyed wolf bared his teeth. When first Princess Hurfeng heard this, she frowned and said angrily, "What do you mean? Are you cursing me? You can find another one after I die." No, did I say that? The white-eyed wolf was stunned. That's exactly what you meant. Princess Hurfeng glared at him. I really didn't. The white-eyed wolf saw that the situation was not good and hurriedly turned around to escape. You're still running?
Stop.
Princess Hurfeng chased after him angrily. What a pair of enemies. Qin Feiyang saw everything with his divine sense and couldn't help but shake his head and laugh.
Then
he retracted his divine sense and looked at the crimson dragon shield. How is it? I've already contacted them. They'll be back soon. However, they're a bit far from us right now. It'll probably take a few days. The crimson dragon's shield said, running so far? Madman was speechless. I'm afraid there's not a single skeleton in this area right now. Madam, please spare me. I was wrong. I won't dare to say anything again. The white-eyed wolf ran over with wails and hid behind Qin Feiyang and Madman, calling for help. Serves you right. Qin Feiyang glared at him in annoyance, then looked at Princess Hurfeng and said with a smile, You'll have to educate him like this in the future. Of course. Princess Hurfeng revealed a devilish smile.
Damn.
Why was I so blind to fall in love with such a tigress? The white-eyed wolf muttered angrily. What did you say? Say it again. Princess Hurfeng's face darkened. No, I'm praising you. Smart, virtuous, and virtuous. You're simply a goddess. The white-eyed wolf shrunk his neck and waved his hands. Princess Hurfeng blushed and lowered her head in embarrassment. What are you talking about? Qin Feiyang, Madman, and Daifuku were stunned. One dared to speak and the other dared to respond. Cough, cough. The white-eyed wolf smiled awkwardly and looked at Madman. Didn't you say that one has to undergo tribulation to comprehend the ultimate profound? Why haven't I seen you undergo tribulation? Tribulation? Qin Feiyang was slightly taken aback. He patted his head and looked up at the sky. That's right. Not only does the sovereign weapon evolve, but we also undergo tribulation when we comprehend the ultimate profound. But what about the tribulation now? You're going to be disappointed. The ultimate profound inherited will not undergo tribulation. The illusory demon orb said indifferently. There's such a good thing? Qin Feiyang and the others were stunned. Otherwise, why would so many humans want to inherit it? The illusory demon orb said, the ultimate profound painstakingly comprehended will have to undergo tribulation, but the inheritance that was picked up for free doesn't have to undergo tribulation? This is too unfair. The white-eyed wolf was indignant. What's fair and unfair about it? If you want to say it's unfair, you should say it's the blood ancestor. When he grasped the ultimate profound of the law of death, he didn't undergo tribulation either. The ice phoenix sword sighed. That's right. Qin Feiyang frowned. Like the blood ancestor, who relied on devouring the souls of the dead to strengthen his power of law, the tribulation should be even more ruthless. That's why the secret technique he stole is so powerful. The raging flame magic sword sneered.
Fine.
There's no such thing as fairness in this world. Qin Feiyang was helpless. Chapter 3756. Wait a minute. How could I have such a thought? The blood ancestor was the brother of the human emperor and the feather emperor, which meant that he was his elder. It was a good thing that he didn't have to go through the tribulation. He should be happy for him. Why was he jealous? No. He couldn't have such thoughts anymore. It would affect his mentality. What about you?
How's your understanding now?
Qin Feiyong looked at Princess Huifeng and asked. Well, Princess Huifeng's expression froze. She coughed and said, maybe it's because my talent isn't as good as Lunatic's, so I haven't completely grasped it yet. Qin Feiyong's mouth twitched. He said playfully, is it because your talent isn't as good as Lunatic's? Or is it because you and the white-eyed wolf are together all day that you haven't focused on comprehending it? Are you implying that I'm a burden to her? The white-eyed wolf said angrily. Otherwise? It's understandable that when you're in love, you stick together all day long. But how many years has it been? Qin Feiyong was speechless. What do you know? We said that no matter how many years have passed, every day together in the future should be as sweet as when we were in love. The white-eyed wolf walked in front of Princess Huifeng and hugged Princess Huifeng's waist with a smug smile. Hearing this, Qin Feiyong and Lunatic both had goosebumps. Why did the white-eyed wolf become so boring after falling in love? The white-eyed wolf glanced down at Princess Huifeng in his arms and said to Qin Feiyong and Lunatic, let's get down to business. Now it's time to intimidate the Fire Phoenix Divine Axe and the others. Hearing this, Qin Feiyong and the other man's eyes flashed. Then, Qin Feiyong conveyed his thoughts to the ancient castle and the other sovereigns' divine weapons. None of them objected. Immediately, the ruler's divine weapons spread out and surrounded Princess Huifeng and the white-eyed wolf. What's the situation? Princess Huifeng was shocked. Daifuku was also slightly stunned. He quickly looked at Qin Feiyong and asked suspiciously, Brother Qin, what are you doing?
Don't worry about it.
I'm doing this for the good of your princess. Qin Feiyong gently pushed Daifuku to the side. He raised his head to look at Princess Huifeng and lightly said, Fire Phoenix Divine Axe, Fire Phoenix Sword, Fire Phoenix Saber, Divine Phoenix Spear, Fire Phoenix Divine Jade. All of you come out.
Clang.
5 sovereign weapons appeared. The Void Mirror, the Profound Ice Divine Hammer, and the other sovereign divine weapons also appeared and looked at Qin Feiyong suspiciously. Qin Feiyong's gaze locked onto the Fire Phoenix Divine Axe and the other 4 divine weapons. He smiled faintly and said, I don't want to force you. You can all consciously make a blood oath to be loyal to your princess forever.
What?
The 5 sovereign divine weapons were shocked. Princess Huifeng and Daifuku looked at each other and finally understood Qin Feiyong's thoughts. This was to pave the way for their future, so that when they returned to the Phoenix Nest, Feng Ho and the Patriarch would not harm them. On the contrary, as long as the control of all the sovereign divine weapons of the Feng people fell into their hands, even Feng Ho would not dare to do anything to them in the future. The 5 sovereign divine weapons, Fire Phoenix Sword, pondered for a moment and understood what Qin Feiyong wanted to do.
And now?
They didn't seem to have the right to choose. Although Qin Feiyong's words were very polite, if they refused, he would definitely fall out with them on the spot. Tactful. Madman chuckled. Sigh. I really didn't expect that there would be a day when even we can't escape from your clutches. Fire Phoenix, Sword sighed.
Don't say that.
We have fought side by side for so many years. In fact, we respect you. I am not only doing this for the sake of First Princess Huifeng. I am also doing this for the sake of you all. Because I don't want to be enemies with you in the future. But if you don't make a blood oath, I'm afraid we will meet on the battlefield sooner or later. Qin Feiyong looked at the 4 sovereign divine weapons and said, as for the Fire Phoenix Divine Axe, he didn't have a good impression of it. Are you sure you want to do this? Fire Phoenix Divine Jade asked. For everyone's sake, we have to do this. Qin Feiyong nodded.
Fine.
Fire Phoenix Divine Jade sighed. The Void Mirror and the Profound Ice Divine Hammer obviously wouldn't help them. Moreover, even if they helped, it wouldn't mean much, because Qin Feiyong's side had far more sovereign divine weapons than them. Qin Feiyong himself now had 12 sovereign divine weapons. In addition to the Blood Ancestor's illusory demon orb and the White-Eyed Wolf's 3 sovereign divine weapons, he had 16. Even if they fought, they had no chance of winning. Next. Fire Phoenix Divine Jade, Fire Phoenix Sword, Fire Phoenix Saber, and Divine Phoenix Spear all made a blood oath one after another. Only the Fire Phoenix Divine Axe was left. Everyone's eyes fell on the Fire Phoenix Divine Axe. Although the Fire Phoenix Divine Axe was a sovereign divine weapon, it still felt a strong pressure at this moment. In the end, it also compromised and made a blood oath of loyalty. Crazy Man laughed and said, "Isn't this a happy thing for everyone?" Fire Phoenix Divine Jade and the other sovereign divine weapons couldn't be happy. Because of the relationship between the golden-winged wolf king and the princess, Qin Feiyong now controlled all the sovereign divine weapons of the Feng people. The fate of the Feng people was worrying about the future. "This is your idea?" Princess Huifeng took a deep breath and turned to look at the white-eyed wolf. "Do you like it?" The white-eyed wolf chuckled. Princess Huifeng was silent for a while and sighed. "I know you are doing this for my own good, but I am worried that doing this will make Feng Ho angry. So, what if she is angry? The 10 sovereign divine weapons are in your hands. What can she do to you? If she is not convinced, kill her too." The white-eyed wolf snorted. "You can't say such things." Putting aside the grudges with the human race, Feng Ho's contribution to the Feng people is obvious to all. As a member of the Feng people, I must respect and thank her. Besides, you will be the son-in-law of the Feng people in the future. Can't you be more generous? Princess Huifeng was dissatisfied. Yes. I will try my best to respect her in the future, okay? The white-eyed wolf pinched Princess Huifeng's nose and smiled dotingly. That's more like it. Princess Huifeng smiled happily. Looking at the lovey-dovey look, Madman roared to the sky. I can't stand it anymore. Heavens, come and take care of these two evildoers. Showing off their love and showing off their affection. Of course he was against it, but could there be a limit? Who could stand it if it continued like this? The white-eyed wolf chuckled and said, Sister Feng, give me a kiss. That's not good. Princess Huifeng lowered her head shyly. You don't love me anymore. The white-eyed wolf said sadly.
No.
There are too many people. Princess Huifeng shook her head. What are you afraid of? We are free to love. It's not something that can't be seen in the light.
Come on.
The white-eyed wolf pouted and moved closer. I really don't know what to do with you. Princess Huifeng glared at him angrily and quickly kissed him. Oh my God, kill me. I really don't want to see these two idiots anymore. The madman slapped his forehead and looked at the sky speechlessly. Qin Feiyong and Daifika looked at each other helplessly. This was simply not letting them live. 3 days passed. The blood ancestor sat on the divine king's throne and returned.
Damn.
You're sitting on it? I haven't sat on it yet. Seeing this, the white-eyed wolf glared at the blood ancestor and shouted, Let's go. The blood ancestor smiled proudly and said, It's your fault for not being able to sit on the divine king's throne. How shameless. The white-eyed wolf rushed forward, grabbed the blood ancestor, and sat on the divine king's throne. The divine king didn't give the white-eyed wolf any face and directly sent him flying.
Hey.
I'm your master, the white-eyed wolf roared. Scram as far as you can. The divine king looked at him with disdain. The white-eyed wolf trembled with anger and said angrily, I'm really blind. I actually fell in love with a heartless thing like you. Then you'd better dig out your eyeballs. The divine king sneered. Damn you. The white-eyed wolf rubbed his forehead in regret. When the divine king swore a blood oath, he should have said that he would listen to his orders unconditionally in the future. There was a huge difference between working for him and working for him, because serving him didn't mean that he had to listen to him. It was all because of his carelessness. The blood ancestor landed beside Qin Feiyong and the madman and asked, The red dragon's shield said that you want to go to the Black Mountain Canyon?
Yes.
Qin Feiyong nodded. The blood ancestor frowned and said, It's said that this used to be the lair of the Darkness Demon King. Are you sure you want to go? The Raging Flame Magic Sword is right. With our current strength, As long as we don't meet the Divine King of Primal Chaos, the Primal Chaos Royal City, or the 9 Demon Kings together, we won't be in any danger. Qin Feiyang smiled. Then it seems you've decided. Okay, let's go to the Black Mountain Canyon. If we really meet the Darkness Demon King, I can take revenge on him for chasing me in the past. The Blood Ancestor sneered. Qin Feiyang asked curiously, how's your harvest over the past few years? It's not that easy. To raise a law to the ultimate level, the number of souls of the dead required is unimaginable. The ultimate profundity of the law of death is because I've more or less comprehended it in the past. Furthermore, I've devoured many undead souls. However, if I can devour the souls of the 9 Demon Kings, I'm sure I'll have a big breakthrough. The Blood Ancestor laughed.
Ah.
Qin Feiyang was stunned. Devour the souls of the 9 Demon Kings? This idea was a bit crazy. Then let's go. The madman said, Sister Feng, let's go. The white-eyed wolf woke up Princess Hufeng, who was in seclusion comprehending the law. Okay, Brother Wolf. Princess Hufeng got up and smiled sweetly. Brother Wolf? You guys are definitely here to discuss me. The madman glared at the two and roared. Yes, it's on purpose. What can you do? The white-eyed wolf laughed. The madman said fiercely, I'm going to part ways with you guys. See you later. No, see you never.
Goodbye.
Haha, the white-eyed wolf laughed complacently. Princess Hufeng couldn't help but smile. She looked at Daifuku and said, I'll have to trouble you. No problem. Daifuku waved his hand and instantly changed back to his original body. They put away their sovereign weapons and jumped on Daifuku's back.
Chirp.
Accompanied by a phoenix cry, Dafu brought the few of them and flew towards the southeast at lightning speed. Just like before, the Blood Ancestor set up a time formation on Daifuku's back. Everyone sat inside the time formation and meditated. The Blood Ancestor stood on Daifuku's head and paid attention to the surroundings. Chapter 3757. With the Blood Ancestor and dozens of sovereign divine weapons, they didn't have to worry about encountering any danger. It was no exaggeration to say that. Right now, in the Heaven Bell Divine Treasure, only the Primal Chaos God King and the 9 Great Devil Kings could threaten Qin Feiyang and company. As for the sovereign divine weapons of the Sky Bell Divine Treasure, it would be fine if they didn't come out, but if they dared to come out and attack them, it would simply be a gift for them. Time flew by. Half a year passed. Wake up. We've arrived at the Black Mountain Canyon. On this day, the Blood Ancestor's voice sounded. Qin Feiyang and the others opened their eyes one after another and scanned the area below. Below them was a boundless expanse of mountains and rivers that were covered in desolation, and it seemed extremely desolate. Moreover, space was suffused with a horrifying aura. It's just ahead. Daifuku had already stopped. The Blood Ancestor pointed ahead and said. Qin Feiyang and the others stood up and walked to the Blood Ancestor's side. Looking at the ground in front of them, they saw a large canyon in front of them. Numerous valleys of different sizes crisscrossed each other. From afar, it looked like a huge maze. What was even stranger was that the entire canyon, whether it was the soil or the rocks, was pitch black. Legend has it that there was an inheritance of the ultimate law of darkness here. This inheritance was fused with the Dark Demon King. The name Dark Demon King was born because of this. The illusory demon orb's voice sounded in the Blood Ancestor's body. The white-eyed wolf's eyes flashed and asked, Then, are there any other inheritances, such as the inheritance of the strongest law? The inheritance of the strongest law. The illusory demon orb was slightly taken aback and said, then stop dreaming. Even in the Sky Bell Divine Treasure, this item is as rare as phoenix feathers and Qilin horns. It's hard to see. But it's not impossible. Didn't Little Rabbit obtain the inheritance of the strongest law back then? The Blood Ancestor smiled. Of course there are. But it all depends on luck. The illusory demon orb said. Little Rabbit obtained the inheritance of the strongest law. Qin Feiyang and the others were surprised. The blood ancestor looked at Qin Feiyong and the mad scientist in shock and asked, "You've already called it brother, but you still don't know?" The Feather Emperor mentioned it last time, but Little Rabbit interrupted. Qin Feiyong said, "It seems that the relationship between the two of you hasn't reached the point where you can truly open your hearts. Even this ancestor is envious of this little rabbit's luck." The blood ancestor sighed. Indeed. To be able to obtain the legacy of an ultimate law is truly a blessing. Qin Feiyong nodded. Wrong. The blood ancestor shook his head.
Wrong?
Qin Feiyong was taken aback. Yes, you're wrong. It's not a legacy of one ultimate law, but two, said the blood ancestor.
What?
Two? Qin Feiyong and the others looked at each other. That's right. An ultimate profound inheritance of two supreme laws. Don't you think its luck is heaven-defying? The blood ancestor was powerless. The corners of Qin Feiyong and the others' mouths twitched. This was more than heaven-defying. This was simply a lucky guy. Madman suddenly turned to look at the white-eyed wolf and asked, "When you fell in the canyon, did you encounter a law miniature or a law inheritance? Do you still need to ask? If I did, I would have already given it to you." The white-eyed wolf pouted. "A stingy guy, like you would give it to us?" Madman's face was full of disdain as he shook his head and sighed. "It seems that these things are really hard to come by." The raging flame magic sword suddenly said, "If you really have the ability, then go find the divine king of primal chaos. As far as the sovereign knows, he has several ultimate profound inheritances that have yet to be fused." "How many? Really?" the white-eyed wolf asked. "Is there a need to lie to you about this?" The raging flame magic sword smiled in disdain. The white-eyed wolf's eyes suddenly flickered. "Behave yourself." Princess Huifeng pulled the white-eyed wolf's clothes and whispered, "I know." The white-eyed wolf smiled. Madman curiously said, "The magic sword even has an ultimate profound inheritance, then it must also have ordinary laws." Of course. As long as you have the ability to snatch it, I guarantee that it will benefit you for the rest of your lives." The raging flame magic sword's words carried an irresistible temptation. Seeing Qin Feiyong's group of three pondering, the blood ancestor's face was full of helplessness. It really was as the saying went, knowing that there is a tiger in the mountain, but still heading to the tiger's mountain. Don't think about it. Even the 9 demon kings can't deal with it, let alone the divine king of primal chaos. Although treasures are good, you need to be alive to enjoy them. He had to cut off those unrealistic thoughts in the three's minds, otherwise, something big would happen sooner or later. Qin Feiyong's group of 3 looked at each other and couldn't help but bitterly smile. That's right. Compared to the divine king of primal chaos's strength, their current strength was nothing. Decisive. They erased those thoughts in their minds. No matter what, they couldn't do something that would send them to their deaths. Daifuku scanned the Black Mountain Canyon and said, "Strange, isn't this Black Mountain Canyon a bit too peaceful? Don't tell me they have already left." The gathering point of the Kirin clan was here, but now there wasn't even a shadow to be seen. And there weren't any skeletons either. It's impossible for them to leave. Even if they leave, they will be like the Foam people, leaving 1 or 2 people here to wait for the other clansmen. However, I hope that when they see us, they won't be like the dragons and the Foam people, attacking us without saying a word. That's very hurtful, Qin Feiyong said with a smile. Hurtful? Daifuku was speechless. Entering the Heavenly Bell divine treasure this time was originally to deal with you, and looking for divine objects was just secondary. Don't be too optimistic. Be mentally prepared. After the blood ancestor finished speaking, he let Daifuku enter the Black Mountain Canyon. He didn't hide his aura. If there were really people in the canyon, they would definitely be able to sense their aura immediately. However, when they searched the entire canyon, they didn't see any clansmen of the Kirin clan. What's going on? The group of people couldn't help but frown. Madman asked, "Heavenly Star God Sword, are you sure that the gathering point of the Kirin clan is here?" "Of course I'm sure. How can you remember wrongly? The heavenly star god sword's voice sounded with a trace of displeasure. He actually doubted its words. But why isn't there anyone? Madman released his divine sense again, covering the entire canyon in all directions, but he still didn't find any traces of people. The clansmen of the Kirin clan have all gathered here so quickly? That's not right. Qi Yifeng, Qi Xiong, and a reclusive old antique of the Kirin clan had already died in their hands, and the heavenly star god sword had also submitted to them. Therefore, without waiting for these three people and the heavenly star god sword, the rest of the Kirin clan would definitely not leave the Black Mountain Canyon like this. Because they didn't know that the three of them were already dead, and the heavenly star god sword had submitted to them. If they didn't know, then they would definitely keep waiting. There should be other reasons for this. Qin Feiyong said, "Let's split up and see if there are any clues."
All right.
Everyone nodded. Qin Feiyong and Madman were together, the White-Eyed Wolf and Princess Horfeng were together, and the Blood Ancestor and Daifuku were together. They split into 3 teams and flew in 3 directions. I didn't find any traces of battle along the way. It shouldn't be like any danger. A moment later, in the west, Qin Feiyong and Madman flew to the edge of the Black Mountain Canyon and scanned the ground below with furrowed brows. If there's danger, there's no need to fight. Qin Feiyong turned his head and looked at the ground outside the canyon. They might have encountered some danger and fled in panic. But the strength of the Kirin clan couldn't be underestimated. Even if the heavenly star god sword submitted to him, there were still 9 sovereign divine weapons. In addition, there was also a group of reclusive old antiques. With such a lineup, even if they encountered the sovereign divine weapon of the Sky Bell divine treasure, or the purple gold skeleton, or even the skeleton condensed from human flesh, they wouldn't be able to escape. Unless it was one of the 9 demon kings, the divine king of primal chaos. Come over quickly, I found a word here. Suddenly, the White-Eyed Wolf shouted. Hearing this, Qin Feiyong and Madman hurriedly used the space-time step and ghost steps to rush to the east. Because the White-Eyed Wolf's voice came from the east of the canyon. When Qin Feiyong and Madman arrived, the Blood Ancestor had already left with Daifuku. After all, the Blood Ancestor had the supreme profundity of the law of time, instant time. The 4 of them were in front of a giant mountain, staring at the cliff as if they were looking for something. Qin Feiyong and Madman flew over and landed beside the 4 of them, looking at the cliff. The cliff was broken, and there was not a single blade of grass, but there was a word.
East.
What does it mean? Madman was suspicious. This handwriting is very messy. It seems to have been written in a hurry. Princess Hoofing frowned and said thoughtfully, but halfway through, she said in surprise, "No, this is Qi Xiaoyun's handwriting." Qi Xiaoyun's handwriting? Qin Feiyong and the others were stunned. We seem to have seen his handwriting before? The White-Eyed Wolf looked at Qin Feiyong and asked, "Yes. When we went to the tea house back then, he left a letter." Qin Feiyong nodded. After recalling for a while, he compared the words on the letter with the words on the cliff in front of him. The 2 were somewhat similar. However, in contrast, the words on the cliff were even more messy. Qi Xiaoyun left it. East. Qin Feiyong looked up to the east and frowned. Could it be that they fled to the east? How do you know that they fled to the east? Daifuku was suspicious. It's very simple. If they went to the east by themselves, they would definitely leave someone here to guard. But now, there's no one here, and the handwriting is so messy, it's obvious that they wrote it in a hurry. If I'm not mistaken, they must be in danger. It's just that I'm not sure if they fled to the east or not. If not, then we'll be wasting time looking in this direction. Qin Feiyong frowned. Even if it's a waste of time, we still have to look. As you said, the Fire Qilin, Tan Wu, and the others are definitely in danger. The White-Eyed Wolf's face was full of worry. Qin Feiyong waved his hand, and the heavenly star god sword appeared. He asked, "Can you contact the other sovereign divine weapons of the Qilin clan?"
No.
Because we haven't established a mind contract with each other. The heavenly star god sword said.
Why?
Aren't you all the sovereign divine weapons of the Qilin clan? Is there a gap? Qin Feiyong frowned. Although we are all the sovereign divine weapons of the Qilin clan, you also know that there are 10 major clans in the Qilin clan. It's not uncommon for the clans to fight and scheme against each other. And we, the sovereign divine weapons, each serve a clan, so there has always been a situation of competition between us. The Heavenly Star God's sword explained.
Sigh.
Can't these 3 clans learn from us? Everyone is harmonious and loving each other. Isn't it good for them? Qin Feiyong sighed helplessly. We, the foam people, are a bit better. There are only 2 factions. Princess Horfeng said with a guilty conscience. The madman mercilessly said, that's because you, the foam people, only have the Ice Phoenix and Fire Phoenix clans. Otherwise, you would be the same as the Dragons and Qilin clans. Princess Horfeng smiled awkwardly. No matter what, we have to find them. The life and death of the Fire Qilin and Tan Wu cannot be ignored. Qin Feiyong clenched his hands, looked at the Heavenly Star God's sword, and said, our speed is too slow. Now we can only trouble you to lead us to track them. It's a small matter. After saying that, the Heavenly Star God's sword swept up Qin Feiyong and the others, turned into a stream of light, and rushed to the east like lightning. The white-eyed wolf suddenly said, Little Qinzi, can't you and the Fire Qilin sense each other? Try now, and see if you can sense its location.
No.
This kind of connection can only be made between us at a close distance. Qin Feiyong shook his head, but he also closed his eyes and tried. The result was that it really didn't work. You're tuning in to the Biyao's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.